marches yesterday and rallies, as well as those who may have had interactions with the police department. As we conduct this investigation, your input will be critical, and we will be releasing those numbers later today to help people out with that. I know one march organizer who was attacked by one of the provocateurs himself and got a bottle to the head, as well as some of the members of the press that we saw in very stark video yesterday. This City Council, together with the Mayor, will get to the bottom of this. We appreciate the opportunity to hear that report back as the investigation proceeds, and I want to thank the Chief and Los Angeles Police Department for stepping forward to make sure that we do this in a thorough and as deep manner as we can. But again, that right to make sure that our friends in the media can have their jobs protected and done in a safe and a democratic way is important. The right of people to assemble and not to be intimidated by anybody, whether that's in official capacity or whether that's private individuals. We will continue to protect that.
District 3 Council Member Dennis Zine makes a request to have the command staff that was in charge at the event to also appear in front of the City Council in addition to Police Chief Pradden to answer questions as to what led to the confrontation between police and demonstrators.
I'd like to add that the Chief of Police be directed to bring the command staff that was in charge of the location, MacArthur Park. I don't know if it was deputy chiefs, commanders, captains, but there's a command staff structure. There's a command staff structure that's in charge. It gives the direct order on what to do and how to do it. You don't see officers running around with ballistic helmets and the bean bags and dressed with the face shields on a routine basis. So in addition to the Chief of Police, who I don't know if he was there or not, I know I was not at the site, I don't know if any of my colleagues were at that site, but I think it's important that the command staff that made that decision be here to answer our questions. The Police Commission, the policymakers, it's fine to have them here, but we need to discuss this with the individuals who gave the order to disperse the crowd and how to disperse them and what weapons the officers are going to use or not use. I think it's important that we find from their state of mind. The chief can talk from his perspective, the police commission can talk about policy, but we need to interview and be able to question whoever was in charge as the incident commander to find out what led to that situation which brought that confrontation between the police and the demonstrators.
Saying this is not your father's LAPD, District 5 Councilmember Jack Weiss declares that we're talking about a small number of people at the end of a very long day.
And it is very clear that we have a chief who is determined to get to the bottom of it and get the facts out immediately. We have an this is not your father's LAPD, and it's not your father's chief. They are responding quickly and in a desire to get all the facts out right away, and I very much appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that the motion that has been put forward does not prejudge what happened in any way. It does not prejudge the actions of any LAPD officers. Indeed, colleagues, as you well know, this rally yesterday was something that the LAPD and various city departments had been working on for months. Hundreds and hundreds of city personnel have worked very hard to make sure that what happened yesterday occurred and occurred appropriately. So clearly we're talking about the actions of a small number of people towards the end of a very long and busy day. But as our council president pointed out just a few moments ago, it was an American rally that happened yesterday. There is no more American right than the right to assemble, than the right to protest, than the right to report the news. We want to make sure that this is a city in which those rights are continually protected and cherished, and that's exactly the purpose of your motion, Mr. Reyes.
District 14 Councilmember Jose Huizar says a lot of goodwill has been built up by the LAPD, but admits he was disturbed by the events that took place at MacArthur Park.
First and foremost, I want to thank and commend the thousands and thousands of people who are out there in a very peaceful demonstration throughout the day. That given the circumstances, it was a peaceful demonstration, and unfortunately it happened to end up the way it did. And unfortunately, given that there were similar marches throughout the country, that Los Angeles was the only one that got the national news that something like this ended up on our streets. I want to also say that what we saw last night in the video clips and what we're hearing about, a lot of goodwill has been built up by our LAPD. It's becoming a bit more diverse, and in fact one of the priorities of our chief for this following years is to build better community relationships. However, last night when I saw the news, I did cringe. I was disturbed to see families running from officers to see babies being held in their arms as they ran across a dirt field, to see journalists rolling around on the dirt, and then a camera being kicked. That is not what Los Angeles is about. I am pleased to know, after discussions with our chief, that there will be a forum by which people can come forward, express themselves, provide witness testimony, so that we can have an airing of these issues and ensure that something like this does not happen again, that our policies in these types of situations are reviewed, examined, and improved, and that if anybody did deliberately move away from policies as to how they're supposed to conduct themselves, that they are held accountable. And similarly, anybody who provoked these incidents, that we get them, bring them to justice, because, as we all know, sometimes in these situations, it is a small number of people who actually provoke these types of situations.
Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you. That item's been approved.
On Friday, May 4th, council members met at the Van Nuys City Hall, and Ed Reyes gave an update on the MacArthur Park incident that happened in his district.
We are doing everything within our power to address what has happened, to correct it. The chief has come forward, has been very transparent in his approach. The FBI is now involved. We're doing everything within our capacity to address this. As you know, several elected officials have already converged on this issue. As we speak, I believe Assemblyman Fabian Nunez is at the park trying to bring back a sense of confidence to our community that we can use this park. My office is working diligently with the nonprofits and all the community organizations that have matured and evolved since the riots of 1992 to address some of these social ills and our economic hardships, and reaffirming that this park is a place for families. So I just want to make sure we understand that when this blows over in a week or two, in a month, or whatever it takes, that we still need to work together as a community with our officers. We're trying to protect our families from the gangs, from the drug dealers, from the prostitution, and the illegal vendors that essentially lower the quality of life of our great city, of our great neighborhoods, of our great park, MacArthur Park. So I ask for that type of cooperation for the future of our community. Thank you very much.
Of course, Council Week in Review will bring you updates on all council action on this issue. LA City View is the government access cable channel for the City of Los Angeles, featuring live coverage of city council meetings and programming about city department services and events. Now, if you have suggestions or comments about any of the programs you see here on Channel 35, or would like to receive a free viewer guide, call our viewer hotline at 213-473-3978. And if you'd like to obtain a copy of an audio or videotape of a council or committee meeting, your request may be made in person at room 395 in City Hall, or by calling 213-978-1046, or of course by dialing 311, your one call to City Hall. And remember, you can watch all Los Angeles City Council meetings live in their entirety on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays beginning at 10 a.m. On Sundays, you can watch the replay of all the week's meetings, also beginning at 10 a.m. Well, that concludes our program for the week ending May 4th, 2007. On behalf of Wendell Ayala and everyone here at Channel 35, I'm Jack Popejoy. Thank you for watching, and please join us for the next Council Week in Review.
Yo, check this out. I'm at the light, right? Dude was trying to fill me out, so I blew right past him. Yeah, I won. But I wasn't the real winner, because he's alive and I'm dead.
What about my family? I wasn't even part of your street race. Now I'm dead.
And don't even think, man, that'll never happen to me, dog, because that's what I thought. And now, I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye.
Listen, life is important. Drive responsibly. Learn more at watchtheroad.org.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning. This is Friday, May 11th. This is the Los Angeles City Council. We meet on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. For those of you that cannot make it to City Hall, we encourage you to watch Channel 35, where we are televised, as well as going on to our website. We are still waiting for Council Member Hahn, Council Member Wisar, Council Member Rosendahl, and Councilmember Garcetti, who is excused to be a little bit late. Oh, great. Mr. Rosendahl is here. Thank you very much. So I'd like to acknowledge, for our first presentation, Council Member Jan Perry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It's with great pleasure that I recognize Victoria Aguayo, Regional Director of Region 21 of the National Labor Relations Board. After 22 years as Regional Director, Victoria retired earlier this month, and she's standing here with her mother today. And I wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge her for all of her work throughout the years. She leaves a long list of accomplishments. In her capacity as Regional Director for the NLRB, she oversaw the investigation and litigation of unfair labor practice charges of numerous cases. She also worked diligently to find resolutions to questions concerning representation under the National Labor Relations Act. Victoria's leadership was instrumental in the investigation and settlement of over 50 unfair labor practice charges involving year-long contract disputes between major Los Angeles area hotels and Unite Local 11. She was also very active in the investigation and resolution of numerous high-impact Southern California charges arising from the 2000 janitorial strike. She is an extraordinary woman who went above and beyond her duties to prevent and remedy unfair labor practices, whether committed by organizations or employers. With her long list of successful undertakings, it is evident that the person who follows her as new regional director will have very tough shoes to fill. I wanted to thank her for joining us here today and wish her well in her retirement and ask her to say a few words and introduce the people who are standing behind her. There's a lot more people here, so more than I realized. But recognize the friends and colleagues who are here with her today.
Thank you very much.
I can borrow from my list if you need to.
All right. Good morning. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Perry. Yes, I'd like to acknowledge, first of all, my colleagues from Region 21, the downtown Los Angeles offices of the National Labor Relations Board, as well as a colleague from headquarters. They are Hector Martinez, Julie Gutman, John Haddam, Patrick Cullen, Liz Valtierra, Jessica Toden, Wingfield Twyman, Alan Wu, Sonia Sanchez, Helen Alo, Linda Barbie, and Joseph Banishevsky. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of my dear mother, Maria del Carmen Perez, who is standing beside me, and my son, Matthew Shupa, who is deputy to City Councilman Jack Weiss. I wish to acknowledge the excellent work that has been performed by members of the NLRB staff downtown Los Angeles. In the over 20 years that I have served as regional director, I have depended on them daily. Their dedication to public service and the mission of the agency has enabled me to do my job in the way that I think befits my position. And I want to thank them for their work and dedication to public service. I acknowledge also that many in here are public servants, and this week we celebrate public service, and I salute all of you, and thank you very much for this recognition. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll present this to you again in the back and have a nice group shot, but
All right.
just a real quick one here. Look this way. And we'll all go in the back and do it as a group.
Thank you.
I'll join you. We'll walk you all in the back and go into the newsroom in just a second.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I just have one more.
Thank you.
And I'm going to join these groups in the back also for a nice picture. I'd like the members of My Choice program from Manual Arts High School to join me at the podium. Don't be shy. Come on up. Hi. How are you? Come on up. Take your tag off. Hi. I'm Noah. How are you? Hi, Dr. Sheree going to LA County. I see you back there. Oh, hi. All right. You okay? Yes. All right, good. All right. It's a pleasure to welcome members of the My Choice Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program. The My Choice program is designed to educate students on issues related to pregnancy prevention. My Choice program was developed by the Children's Hospital and is coordinated by the Manual Arts High School Health Center. Teen pregnancy prevention programs such as My Choice are extremely important, especially when you consider that we are living in a country where 4 out of 10 teenage girls will become pregnant at least once before the age of 20. In fact, 50,000 teenagers will have babies this year in California alone. Startling statistics such as these are why we need to come together as a community to provide our young people with education and health services that they need in order to prevent teen pregnancy. To bring attention to this epidemic, I ask you to join me in recognizing May as National Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month. By bringing awareness to this issue, I hope we can reduce teenage pregnancy rate so that we can give these young people an opportunity to do well in life. And I want to thank the staff and the students of My Choice Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program for joining us here today and for helping to bring light on this important issue. Now, the folks who are here with me today, Matt Moyer, who is the program coordinator, Julie McAvoy, program director, Noah Garcia, health educator, Eddie Martinez, who is a student and a member of the Youth Health Action Board. And supporters are Abu Izquierdo, Jenny Aroche, Bertrand Perdomo, and Shirley Thornton, and Mr. Trimmis. Is Mr. Trimmis here? No, he's not here. Okay. And I'd just like to ask your designee, if somebody could just say a few words. Somebody want to say a few words? Okay.
Good morning. We'd like to thank you for recognizing National Teen Pregnancy Prevention Month and for this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Matt Moyer. I'm the project coordinator of the My Choice Project. And as Ms. Perry said, it's a teen pregnancy prevention program at Manual Arts High School. Teen pregnancy prevention continues to be an important issue, and we know that despite the record decline in teen pregnancy rates in California, more than 50,000 teenagers will have babies in California just this year, and that means 1 out of every 3 girls become pregnant before they turn the age of 20. And if that isn't enough, 1 out of every 2 Latino girls becomes pregnant as a teenager, further costing California taxpayers an estimated $1.5 billion for teen births in California. So Los Angeles, I think, and the rest of the state is at a critical juncture in teen pregnancy prevention efforts, as many teen pregnancy prevention programs have already been cut, and a number of factors threaten to reduce and eliminate other successful teen pregnancy prevention programs that really have contributed to this decline. So as the teen population grows, adults have an obligation to provide young people with educational health services that they need in order to prevent teen pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections. So if the students could say just a few words, we want to thank you very much for this opportunity, Ms. Perry, Perry and Ms. Pamela Huntoon, and the distinguished members of council. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Say your name.
Hello, my name is Jenny Aroche. I'm a peer educator at the Manual Arts High School. There are many reasons why the My Choice program has been very successful. A lot of habits in the lives of teens have been changed for the betterment of their future because of all this education we are getting and all the all the education we're getting. This program has contributed and helped a lot around the community, and it is bettering the community by giving us a better future because we are the future, and if we need to be more centered in our education instead of going out and having kids. One way that this has helped us also is because we're beating the statistics that are sometimes used against us, and we're making progress into something, a whole new idea that we can do this without having a lot of obstacles in front of us. The program, like the My Choice program, is a very, very important program, and it plays a very important role in our lives. And that's why it's very important for us to try and get more programs like the My Choice program, and for us to remain funded. So it's very important that we have these programs so they can help us in our future and our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good. Who's our next speaker? Say your name.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Eddie Martinez. I'm a senior at Manual Arts High School. I started getting involved in My Choice program in 2006 when I transferred from Locke Senior High School. And at Locke Senior High School, we don't have a clinic over there, and it's a big difference when you come to Manual Arts because I saw a big difference in the way that many kids in my school and Locke Senior High School have a lot of kids or they're pregnant or stuff like that. And when I came to Manual Arts, it seemed it decreased, and it seemed a big difference. And I noticed that it's because they were educated on how to prevent teen pregnancy, STDs, and all that stuff that is really hurting our population as teens. Because many of us don't really want babies at this time, or we're not ready, and we just want to get more education. And My Choice program, it's a really big, helpful program in our school at Manual Arts, and just hopefully it stays up and it keeps getting funded.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and these are wise words from these young people, so I appreciate the fact that all of you came down today to share that with us. Thank you very much. Let's give them a big hand.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perry. We are awaiting some of our additional council members for presentation, Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Wiesar. We also are awaiting a quorum, so if we could ask them and their staffs to send them down, and also Ms. Hahn, who will allow us to have a quorum and begin to have this meeting. So right now we will take, a commercial break. now 10:30. We still do not have a quorum. If I could ask Ms. Hahn, Mr. Wiesar, or Mr. Garcetti to make their way here to the City Council chambers. If not, we will have to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Able to continue one presentation. Ms. Perry will present a proclamation in absence of Mr. Garcetti. Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Everybody got their... Yeah. Is this everybody? Okay, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm pinch hitting for our council president, who should be here momentarily. He's surveying some of the damage in Griffith Park. We're here to recognize two fine individuals today, Cecil Nungary and Mark J. Robertson, Sr. They were originally appointed by then City Council President Alex Padilla to the Board of Commissioners of the Industrial Development Authority in January 2004, and they have served with distinction through February of 2007. Through their leadership, Cecil and Mark have guided the Industrial Development Authority through the issuance of more than $863 million in bond financings on behalf of the City of Los Angeles manufacturers, empowerment zone businesses, and nonprofit organizations. They have helped to bring businesses to Los Angeles and create jobs for thousands of Angelenos. Cecil and Mark's work with the IDA has helped to reduce neighborhood blight, improve access to goods and services, and has made Los Angeles more socially responsible and business-friendly. Cecil chaired the marketing committee and brought innovative ideas to market the IDA. These ideas have expanded the use of Industrial Development Authority resources and have safeguarded the public interest through fiscally prudent practices. Mark chaired the legislative committee and guided the Industrial Development Authority through the passage of important legislation. His leadership has expanded the use of IDA resources and has made our products more beneficial to the citizens of Los Angeles. Both have always served with distinction, grace, dignity, extraordinary competency, and a deep commitment to the City of Los Angeles. So on behalf of Council President Eric Garcetti and the entire Los Angeles City Council, I stand here to commend and to thank both Cecil Nungary and Mark J. Robertson Sr. for their exceptional public service on behalf of the city and all of its residents. Can we please give them a big hand? Short words? Anyone want to say a few short words?
Thank you, Councilmember Perry, and the entire City Council. I really appreciate the opportunity to have served this city that I was born and raised in, and on behalf of the company that allowed me to volunteer my time, Pacific Coast Regional Small Business Development Corporation. We've been located for the last 30 years in Council District 10, soon to move to Council District 8 by virtue of our having purchased an office building at the corner of 43rd and Western. So again, thank you for the opportunity to serve, and hopefully I'll be able to serve in another capacity in the future. Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Alex Padilla, now State Senator, for the appointment, as well as the City Council. Also want to recognize the staff, because we all know that a lot of the heavy lifting that goes on is actually conducted by the staff. And having worked with them and understanding that we're all asked to do more with less, they really exemplified that. And I just wanted to recognize them. And once again, thank you for allowing me to participate in the process within city government. And thank you once again.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Perry. I know Mr. Smith and Mr. Rosendahl are also going to pitch it. I'd like to acknowledge them for the next presentation.
Come on around.
Thank you. Get down and say hello to you. Come on.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. We are joined today by a distinguished delegation from our United States military reservists and Major General Gravitt, who has been here before. Yes. And we appreciate him coming back to make a special presentation to the City of Los Angeles for its support of our veterans in service and our reservists in service. So, Major General.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. It's my honor to be here and once more to appear before the Council. As you recall, a few weeks ago we were here and we presented our individual citations to each council person, thanking them for their support in their district for all the military reservists in their district. And those were individual awards. It was called a Seven Seals Awards. Well, we're back once more this morning, and this morning we're here to present an award for the entire city government, and that is a Pro Patria Award. A Pro Patria means for country. A few years ago, the city signed a statement of support for the military reservists, acknowledging their support for all the military reservists and their family. It's called a 5-star award, and I'm going to have my deputy, a Colonel retired, U.S. Marine Corps retired, Larry Gonzalez, read that award.
Thank you, sir. The statement of support for the Guard and Reserve to the city and the City of Los Angeles. We recognize that the National Guard and Reserve are essential to the strength of our nation and the well-being of our communities. In the highest American tradition, the patriotic men and women of the Guard and Reserve serve voluntarily in an honorable and vital profession. They train to respond to their community and their country in time of need. They deserve the support of every segment of our society. If these volunteer forces are to continue to serve our nation, increased public understanding is required, an essential role of the Guard and Reserve in preserving our national security. Therefore, we, that is the City of Los Angeles, join other employers in pledging that 1, employment will not be denied because of service to the Guard and Reserve. 2, employee, job, and career opportunities will not be limited or reduced because of service in the Guard and Reserve. 3, employees will be granted leaves of absence for military service in the Guard and Reserve consistent with the existing laws. And 4, this agreement and its resultant policies will be made known throughout our organization. It is this is the highest award that can be received by any entity in the country, and I'm pleased to have grown up in the city and retired as a Los Angeles School District employee in the city, and we've always been consistent with these policies. So this is a reminder of what has already been signed. Thank you, sir.
And the award we're here to present today, the City of Los Angeles has gone above and beyond since signing that document about 3 years ago. Now I'm here to present the Pro Patria Award, which is the highest award that the State Committee of Employee Support of Guard and Reserve actually can present. And it's an eagle emblazoned on a base of granite, and it says ESGR 2007, Employer Support to the Guard and Reserve, award the Pro Patria to the City of Los Angeles, presented on behalf of the men and women of America's Reserve Force for outstanding service to the nation, to national defense through continuous support of the National Guard and Reserve. So I make this presentation to the entire city government, and accepting would be Councilman Rosenthal.
Actually, we should share it together, Mr. Smith and I, being the veterans here on the council. On behalf of really the city, the previous mayor, Mayor Hahn, Mayor Villaraigosa, and the city council here for taking leadership for the National Guard and the Army Reserve. This war in Iraq and Afghanistan have put a tremendous responsibility on the members of this branch of the military. We used to see it as a weekend thing and a summer camp thing, but as these wars became what they became, they have taken on tremendous responsibility. The Admiral didn't mention that he was called off of his job, put on active duty, and sent to Iraq. And the people behind me have been brought into the military. 2 of them here are police officers. Where are the police officers? Right here, from our LAPD, who were called into active duty. Give them all a round of applause. And on behalf of my colleagues on the council, it is a great honor for us to accept this honor, but the real honor belongs to all of those folks behind me and all those in uniform right now in harm's way serving our great nation in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. That's what it's about. Yes, please.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce my military colleagues that are here. First of all, we have Rear Admiral Mike Shatinsky, Captain Mark Davison, Senior Master Sergeant Danielle Banks, Sergeant Walker, and Sergeant Choi. I'd like to have the Admiral make some remarks.
Thank you. On behalf of the United States Navy, I'm pleased to have this opportunity to recognize the City of Los Angeles. Let me express my deepest gratitude to all of you for supporting your military's Guard and Reserve employees. From the birth of our country to today, it's been the citizen soldiers that have made our nation great. Whatever disagreements exist over the war in Iraq, we are all united in our admiration for the men and women serving our nations overseas and in this country in these challenging times. Thank you so much for believing in them. This is a tough time for our service members and especially their families. I can assure you that your help, your understanding are very important. You value these citizen soldiers and know they're worth more than retaining. You set the standard for support of the Guard and Reserve as recognized by this Pro Patria Award, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Madam President. If I could just say, this council took an extraordinary action a couple years ago, not just to conform to the federal law that we have to allow our reservists to go, but to say that we're going to make sure that they are not damaged in their service, that they would not lose their benefits, their salaries, and they would not be damaged, their families would not be damaged by their service. Unfortunately, you hear too many stories about reservists that are called up, go to Iraq, come home to bankruptcies, to their families losing their homes because their employers do not fully support them. This city said we are not going to be one of those employers. We recognize that we have some 40 or 50 employees currently serving in reserve forward units in Iraq, and that we would not damage their life, damage their families for their willingness to serve the people of the United States of America. And so I'm very proud on behalf of the City Council to accept this award. We made a conscious decision to take care of our people, and we're going to follow through with that however long it takes. So God bless those who have gone. And just to report, as a proud father, you can see the star on my, the flag on my desk. My son entered the Gulf of Aden right off the Iranian waters in Yemen just a week ago. And so I feel very strongly about this. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, both of you.
And may Los Angeles be the model for the rest of the cities in the nation to take care of their National Guard and their folks who are in war right now in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti. 11 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Hahn moves. Mr. Alarcon seconds.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Those will be approved.
Madam President, would you like to take public comment at this time?
I'd actually like to run through the agenda first, then we will go back to presentations.
Okay, items 9 and 10 are continued for May 16th. There is a request.
Those items will be continued to May 16th.
First group of items are items noticed for public hearing, and that is items 1 through 8.
Are there any specials, colleagues, on items 1 through 8? If not, Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next items?
Next are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 14 through 23. 10 votes are required for consideration. Oh, I'm sorry.
Items 9 through 13, I think, which public hearings have been held.
Oh, I'm sorry. Items 9 through 13 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay, any specials, colleagues, on items 9 through 13? Yes, Mr. No? Okay. If there are no specials on 9 through 13, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, 9 and 10.
If you could, those and 9 and 10 have already been continued?
Yes.
So it'll be 11 through 13. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next items?
Next are items 14 to 23, and those are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. And there are cards on items 20, 21, and a possible substitute motion on 23.
And 24 actually has cards as well?
Yes, 24.
Any specials on this? Is there a substitute motion, item 23? Yes. Okay, we will hold that on the table. Or has it already been distributed? No, I don't think it's been
yes,
distributed. We will hold it on the table. Item 23, we held on the table. Mr. Alarcon?
And
21, okay. That's, yes, through a card. so colleagues, right now we have items 20, 21, 23, and 24, which are called special. The remainder of the items are now before you. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
Those items have been approved. Next item.
Madam President, I understand that there's a special item that is being worked on at this moment. Yes? Not ready yet? Okay.
Okay, well, while we're figuring that one out, what we will do is go back to presentations and acknowledge. Yes, Mr. Alarcon?
I'd like to have item 13 reconsidered and sent back to committee.
Item 13 to be reconsidered and sent back to committee.
Just a report.
Okay. Any opposition to that? If not, we'll open the roll on reconsideration on item number 13. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
$11 ayes.
That item is reconsidered and will be referred back to committee. Thank you. I'd like to now acknowledge Mr. Wiesar for our next presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. And colleagues and public, I'm really thrilled and happy to have with me today some of the winners of the 3rd annual Highland Park Beautiful Poster Contest. We have with us here today not only some great artists, but young people who have learned early in their lives the importance of having a cleaner, greener, and safer community. These kids were the winners who worked hard through their art to show how they can have a better community in Highland Park. Along with my colleague, Councilmember Ed Reyes, we wanted to highlight and encourage these young people to continue doing what they're doing. And we have with us some very talented young boys and girls. If you have a chance, please do come see their artwork later on today. Some of my colleagues in council have some great ideas about what to do in their districts. So with that, let me first welcome our first place elementary school winner, Dion Guan. Dion? Congratulations. You did a wonderful job. I'll take a picture over here. Look over there. I'm going to ask you Sam words after I give it to her. After I announce everybody. Okay? Thank you. We also have Christina Hemming, the 2nd place elementary school winner. Christina, congratulations. Good job. Also with us is Priscilla Hernandez, the 3rd place elementary school winner. Priscilla. Yay! We also have Amy Aldana, honorable mention, elementary school winner. Amy. Damaris Mercado, 1st place middle school winner. Damaris. Sequoia Salazar, 2nd place middle school winner. Sequoia, congratulations, good job. Miriam Bribieska, honorable mention middle school winner. Did I pronounce that correctly? Bribieska. We did, that's Miriam. And they wanted to test me to see if I could pronounce it correctly. Ana Bribieska, first place high school winner. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the following organizations who helped sponsor this contest. They are Ellie Bridges, Kiwanis Club, the Hathaway Youth Leadership Council, the Historic Highland Park Neighborhood Council, and the Luther Burbank Builders Club. At this time, I'd like to ask Dion Guan, who was this year's grand prize winner, to please come up and share a few words with us.
I just want to thank everyone, and I'm very grateful for this award.
Very well said, and thank you, Heinrich Kiefer, who's not only with a number of these groups here. You're involved in a number of community events here, so thank you for helping with us with this today. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you. Let's keep encouraging our young people to think about how we could all contribute back to our community that starts at a very young age. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Colleagues, we will now go to our public comment portion of our City Council meeting. I will ask in a moment the following individuals to please come forward. Daniel Gus, followed by Rochelle Koretz, followed by Nicholas Napolitano, followed by Lydia Ponce.
Good morning, City Council.
Yes, good morning. Daniel?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. A few days ago, Councilmember Alarcon talked about how his constituents were being cheated out of the LA River project and the benefits of it. I'm concerned that the City of Los Angeles has $3 million of Prop F money, and the animal shelter in Councilmember's district still doesn't have its spay-neuter clinic or a veterinarian to staff it. I'm concerned that Councilmember Weiss and Zine have a new shelter opening in their district, but the spay-neuter clinic isn't open and the spay-neuter clinic isn't staffed there. I'm concerned that the North Central Animal Shelter opened in November 2006 and its spay-neuter clinic is closed. I'm concerned that council members Hahn and Rosendahl have new clinics coming in their, have new shelters coming in their area, and the spay-neuter clinics are not open. I want Ed Boakes to do the job he was hired to do. He's been here for a year and a half and has $3 million of Prop F money. But council members, your constituents are being cheated out of the services you paid for. Mr. Boakes is here today, and I'd like you to ask him why the spay-neuter clinics and all of these shelters are closed and what he plans to do to get veterinarians to hire them. The only thing Mr. Boakes has come up with is an unaccredited school that's 50 miles away from the city of Los Angeles. They've never graduated a single veterinarian student, and that's not the answer. The shelters are teeming with animals, and Mr. Boakes has claimed that the city has gone no-kill for the month of March, but he's failed to mention that the city of Los Angeles killed 650 animals in March. And Councilmember Smith, your new shelter is opening in about a month, but there's no spay-neuter clinic open, and there's no veterinarian to staff it. So we can talk all we want about item 24 later today, but I'm concerned that we have all these shelters. Mr. Boakes has $3 million of Prop F money, and we don't have the clinics or the veterinarians to staff them. Please ask him to answer those questions. Thank you
very much. Rochelle Koretz.
Thank you. Yes, good morning to everybody. My name is Rochelle Koretz. I addressed this council for the first time last Friday in Van Nuys. I was very nervous then, and I still am. I want to be clear that today I am expressing my views only, not necessarily those of my neighbors. I was never involved in city affairs until last May when, along with others, I received notice of a hearing to construct a 4-story condominium in our quiet, predominantly 1-story neighborhood. It was then that I began a new adventure with the help of a few knowledgeable people who truly empowered me. It has been a tremendous journey so far, and I've learned so much about how my city government operates. I have become aware of the fact that we do not have a perfect system, that it is a work in progress, but it is so reassuring to know that each and every voice is welcome to participate. The problem I am now having is that my voice seems to be falling on deaf ears. In the past few months, I have been actively working to set up a meeting with Councilmember Wesson to come and meet with my neighbors to discuss our options and strategies so that we may have a collective voice in the future development of our community. We believe that possibly establishing a design review committee would be an excellent way to make sure that the community plans are taken seriously and not just viewed as a wish list. Last Friday, I was promised this meeting by his planning deputy, Andrew Westall. I was so elated that I felt the need to publicly thank Mr. Wesson for acquiescing to this meeting. I did what a friend who has been around City Hall much longer than me said I should never do, quote, performance for promises. Well, I bet you can guess what happened. The meeting got canceled, and no one is answering my email regarding rescheduling. So I stand before you today 1 week after praising Mr. Wesson to express my profound disappointment with how his staff handles his constituents. Mr. Wesson may have no knowledge of this, but he still must be held accountable for his actions of those working for him. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Nicholas Napolitano.
I come today speaking as a fourth-generation American citizen who was shocked beyond belief when I witnessed LAPD open fire with non-lethal projectile weapons against children, women, men, the elderly, and the homeless. There was absolutely no discrimination in who was shot at. In trying to flee and keep the peace, and in addition, tried to get my fellow community members to safety, I was shot in the upper left portion of my back with rubber bullets. I have these two photos to detail what occurred. There was no warning to disperse on the southeast end of MacArthur Park where I was. There were women and children, and people were hurt for no reason. Chief Bratton said that missiles were thrown. There was no such missile thrown. There were a couple of 8-ounce empty water bottles that were thrown. This all started when a couple of motorcycle officers ran in to peaceful Aztec dancers. There was no warning for them to disperse or leave the street. I come here with great hope that something will be done about this that will be beyond the norm. This cannot continue. This was a march for immigrants' rights and peace, and it descended into a melee because of the tactics used by LAPD. In closing, I want to also address that the media has reported that anarchists were the ones who caused this. This is not true. In fact, there were maybe 10 anarchists, and they were in fact the ones trying to keep the peace. I do sincerely hope that change will occur. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Lydia Ponce. After Lydia Ponce, we'll be going out to the San Fernando Valley.
Lydia Ponce, Venice. As I approached the park, there were 4 or 5 media helicopters. By the time I parked my car, there was one LAPD helicopter making an inaudible, incomplete announcement at the southwest side of the park. Police started shooting randomly, and there were children of all ages. Once I met up with everyone up at the west side of the park, where moms had their children up on their tippy toes trying to run towards safety away from the LAPD who were firing into the crowd. I helped a family to safety who had simply been feeding the pigeons by the water, and there was not one announcement made on the live PA from the organizers or the police. When I returned to the southwest side, there were 2 police officers. For every 2 police officers, there was 1 police officer with a gun in between them. And I asked where are the city resources for bullhorns to announce simply to have people who are attending this event be properly directed and respected, would have truly had a day without incident. My 3 minutes are to serve you as a reminder, and especially to the mayor, that he should not have been out of town and that his poor planning on his activities do not sit well with me, and I say shame to the mayor. And I want to remind all of you that as you talk and don't listen to what I'm saying, as last time I checked, that all of you work for us, and that all these investigations, as they occur, need to yield to change in the policies to better serve and protect the community, which I am a part of. Because as you're planning your lunches, your weekend, or whatever it is that you're doing, perhaps, you could really, truly take a seat and listen to the general public statements. Shame on all of you for not listening and taking your seats and doing your job.
Now go out to the San Fernando Valley to Marlene Goodman, followed by Ellen Little. Good morning, Marlene.
Yes, good morning. This is a public comment, but it's about your support of 1634. And as the public, I didn't know if I would have enough time to speak to the issue later. So I just wanted to say that I'm representing Senior Citizens for Humane Legislation and Education, the Directors of Animal Welfare that serve on neighborhood councils, and Stray Cat Alliance. And although I'm standing here alone, I am representing hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people that live in the city of Los Angeles who are praying for a change for what is happening to thousands of animals every year in the city and state. And I'll speak on some issues when I come back. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Little. Ellen Little.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm a resident of Studio City, and I'm just like in this preliminary part of the agenda to thank Councilmember Alarcon for introducing this motion to support an ordinance for mandatory spaying and neutering consistent with the provisions of AB 1634. I'm here to support this motion. Thank you. Can I speak later then? Thank you.
Next public comment speaker here is Zuma Dog, followed by Arnold Sachs, followed by Michael Carrion.
Yes, microphone. Yes, thank you, City Council. Time for the Zuma Dog Report for Friday, May 11th, 2007. You can read more on mayorsam.blogspot.com. First of all, I'd like to say, in case the people don't know, that a federal jury awarded a $1 million they awarded $1 million to a female LAPD because of sexual discrimination and hostile work environment at LAPD. That just cost the taxpayers $1 million. Nobody reported it in the media. I had to get on my back computer and it came up in the search. So I'd like to say that we got a lot. Garagos and Garagos is next, y'all. Garagos and Garagos is filed in federal court because somebody was locked up for 2 months without DNA being run and it got him exonerated. So we got a problem with too many lawsuits in the city that are causing the taxpayers too much money. I asked the mayor to please have all city departments get together for a training and education seminar, and we need more training and education of all city employees as they come on the job, because laws are constantly changing, new rules are constantly being made, and you have new employees constantly being added to the system, and you're putting them out there on the streets to try to enforce things, and they have no knowledge. So we need more education, because a lot of these frivolous lawsuits cost them millions and millions of dollars could easily be avoided in the civil department. Thank you very much for that. And I'd like to say, Dirt Burnell, there has been a complaint filed with the Building and Safety Department because the Michael Zenon of Zenon Development has, they say that he has intentfully deceived the city and provided fraudulent information to try to get permits, because you got a dirt road there that they're trying to pretend is a street, and they're trying to build 6 houses there, and they transfer property back and forth because they tried to avoid an environmental impact statement by doing that, because it looked like it was less than 3 houses, and you're not supposed to be doing that. And so now we've got these, we've also got this developer. Here's what's going to be happening in the city, and I'm glad Eric Garcetti just walked into the room, because there's something known as Ordinance 12.952. That's the vacancy rate you've been hearing Zuma Dog and Noel Weiss talk about for so much. And so now what's happening is the local planning commissions, like the West Los Angeles and the ones in Eric Garcetti, the local commissions are now saying, no, we're putting the smackdown on these vacancy rates and the Ellis Acts and all these things. So we're saying no to these condo conversions. However, now what the developers are doing, and Michael Zenon has one in Rosendal's district, and Garcetti has a development project where the community said no to. They're appealing to city council now and saying, we know that all the public and all the committees and everybody said no, but please, will you do it anyway? Just screw the public. Just do it anyway, because you know I support you. So it's going to be the challenge is now on, because now it's going to be up to you guys. We're going to see exactly what's up, y'all, whether you're going to be doing what you say or whether you're just in the back pockets of developers, because now it's all going to be coming
Mr.
to
Jimbo,
y'all.
you got
for appeal.
a little bit extra time because they had not pushed the button for your time, so your time is now up.
Oh, but
Thank
okay,
you.
well, I was timing it off of this, so I'd just like to say you got to give it to me. I'm sorry you screwed up. I'd like to say, please stop deceiving. The message is believed.
Thank you very much. Arnold Sachs. Mr. Sachs? Mr. Sachs will be followed by Michael Carrion, Candido Merez, and Noel Weiss.
I haven't started. The clock is running. Well, good morning, council members. A few things I'd like to touch on here. Yesterday, or a couple days ago, there was a bomb scare. I'd like to congratulate the bomb-sniffing dogs for not finding the package that was left at Union Station, but losing the suitcase to a transient during the training exercise is so totally unacceptable. Hopefully this person will come forward and instead of being prosecuted, this highly trained transient will allow his expertise and his ability to carry out this covert act will be documented and studied by the appropriate parties. Also, I'd like to talk about congratulating the new airport director, but I would suggest that she please forget about the Green Line extension, as MTA board does not support the formation of a construction authority. Along that vein, MTA is holding fare increases throughout this month. Please contact your council members or your church leaders, or have your voice heard somehow, some way, because they want to account for every penny that's coming in, but nobody's accounting for all the dollars that are being spent. And then finally, today the council offered a proclamation in support of the area's reservists. I would ask for a moratorium on the council rules regarding non-votes as acceptable procedure. I think it's very hypocritical for the council to allow this to continue as long as America's servicemen are in harm's way. The city council should at least spend the time to sit and vote on their pending legislation instead of having a non-vote count. It's very, very disrespectful to anybody serving overseas. Thank you very much. Oh, fine.
Thank you. Michael Carrion. Mr. Carrion?
Yes, my name is Michael Carrion, and I got a few questions. If I can get your attention, please. You know what? This is one of the reasons why MacArthur Park happened. People come here to talk to you guys, and your personal conversations are more important. Public opinion doesn't mean anything in this forum, so I want to talk to the public. You know why MacArthur Park happened? Because nobody that sits in this horseshoe cares. Okay? You have the ability to do something about that. Who here was surprised when Rodney King got beat up? Nobody that I spoke to was. If you ran from LAPD, you got beat up. The consent decree is in effect. What good does it do? I'm not saying the whole police department is bad, but if you got bad apples inside a basket, you take them out. If not, the whole basket goes bad. What we need is more training, a better quality of training, not more officers. If you train the officers properly, this wouldn't happen. But what we do is we put them out there with the old training of suppression, and that's all they know. They can do a better job if you give them the benefit of the doubt. 90% of this police department is great, but if you leave them with the other 10%, they're going to ruin a whole lot more. That's what I had to say on that issue. I've come here several times speaking for my community. If the council people feel that I'm being a little too abrupt about it, or I'm stepping on toes or hurting feelings, I don't apologize for what I say. This is not a certain councilman or council district that I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about the city in whole. The city, the way it works, is all screwed up. You can't get anything done around here without a bureaucracy of wait till 6 months from now. I didn't get your email. I didn't get this. I'm too busy out to lunch. Gentlemen, you guys got, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. We have to do something about this. You here have an opportunity to do something about it.
Thank you very much.
Take advantage.
Candido Merez, followed by Noel Weiss.
Good morning, Madam President, council members. I want to talk about something nice. I've been gone for a week and under the weather. I want to talk about what happened last Sunday in the 12th District, Citrus Sunday, where we collected fruits for those individuals who cannot afford them. Mr. Smith, I hope this goes citywide because I know from San Pedro to Chatsworth there are individuals and seniors and kids that need that good fruit. Mrs. Hahn, you saved a ballpark this week. You know, if you save one child in San Pedro, you're saving a child in the rest of the city. It's absolutely essential. And business still is going to flourish in your district. So, again, congratulations. Let's talk about those good things that are happening in our city. Mr. Weezar, to have all those children here today and showing that they're involved in our environment, that's fantastic, sir. I hope we see more of that. Ms. Gruhl, I want to congratulate you. We need another good city controller. I'm not much of an individual in my community, but I'll work my bones to get you elected, and I hope that you'll call upon me. I look forward to working with you. Lastly, I'd like to talk about LAPD. One of the good things that happened this last few days, and maybe some people don't want to hear about it, but 19 officers were honored for serving this community beyond the call of duty. We don't hear about those things. Last week we talked about the bike patrol who are working with the homeless in Van Nuys and the great things they're accomplishing there. We talk about the police officers who are serving in Iraq. And the things that happened on May 1st at MacArthur Park, I'm not going to say they didn't happen. For those of you who know, I'm not anybody's puppet. I've fought DWP. But can you imagine if we took 25,000 people that were there for the demonstration and we took them into their communities and we started going after the gangs? 25,000 people going against the gangs. Can you imagine that? We asked 9,000 police officers to do that. But can you imagine if we got the people of this great city to finally say enough with gangs? I think we'd be a greater city. I still believe that we're the greatest city and the greatest country in the world. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss? Mr. State Attorney, did you want to say something?
Thank you, council members.
Mr. Weiss, could you hold on just one second and we'll start your clock? Mr. City Attorney.
Just a reminder that the discussion should be directed to council as a whole. If you want to talk about actions of individual council members, talk about them in the third person, please.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. In the spirit of Candy's remarks, I just wanted to throw in a positive for citizen involvement in government. Specifically on the Planning Commission level, I know Mr. Wesson has been concerned and Mr. Garcetti has been concerned about 1295.2 in terms of tenant conversions, trying to get the staff to move along. But what is happening is the people are moving along, and I don't know who's going to be watching this, but I think Cleo Tegel over in Edgecliff Drive deserves a great deal of congratulations because the East Valley Planning Commission, through her efforts, and she's not a lawyer, she's a very strong advocate, however, but through her efforts, the East Valley Planning Commission has, for the first time, really a landmark decision, granted the appeal of the tenants in denying a conversion in this situation. So now what we have is, again, citizen action through our democracy. And I've just been told, I checked with Peter Gutierrez, maybe I can quote him, hopefully he'll still continue to talk to me. But Peter said that the city attorney is now actually going to enforce the ordinance when it's challenged in court, if in fact it is challenged in court. So what we're going to have is now, and I assume Mr. Garcetti will support it when it gets to council, so we are going to have a situation where we're moving the ball forward, finally, but it's really as a result of citizen action. And I think whether it's gang issues, whether it's school issues, whatever it is, to the extent that we can reach down, get out to the community as opposed to talking to ourselves here in City Council, I think that we would be better off. So I just wanted to let the people out there know that your time and your effort does pay off in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. That closes our public comment. I'd like to now acknowledge my colleague, Mr. Garcetti, for our final presentation.
Thank you very much, Madam President. And I'm going to ask a few guests to join us here at the podium. Come on over, guys. And I apologize. This morning I was with the governor and the mayor and Councilmember LaBonge wrapping things up over in Griffith Park. And again, we want to thank the incredible firefighters and the coordinated effort. Many of them just got off that fire and are already over at the fires that is now at Catalina. And I know that in San Pedro High School has been opened up as an emergency shelter and some other things. I also am sorry I missed the employee, the Guard presentation, the Reserve presentation. I really want to thank everybody and congratulate Los Angeles for being such a great employer for our men and women who serve in the Reserves and in the Guard. But we are here because it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Lily Kachikis, who is a young lady we are very excited about honoring today. She is right over here. We've asked Lily and her family and friends to come and join us today in council chambers to publicly acknowledge the efforts of a young lady who took it upon herself to start a huge endeavor. One that was entailed organizing a fundraiser for an organization to address an issue that she felt very close to her heart. Now, Lily is 6 years old and is currently in elementary school. One of the youngest people we've honored here probably this year. But she's like any other child her age. It's active and inquisitive and enjoys playing with her friends. But when the LA Youth Network, a Los Angeles-based organization dedicated to reducing youth homelessness, which is a population sometimes overlooked, reached out, Lily jumped into action. The Los Angeles Youth Network tells youth between the ages of 12 and 17 that they have a home and a place in society and that they are just as deserving as any other young person out there. It's a nonprofit organization dealing and struggling with issues of budgets and resources so they can continue their outreach efforts. And we've seen what impact they've had in Hollywood and throughout our city, touching youth that live on the streets. And Lily said, you know, as a young person, as a young lady, I need to help my own. I need to help the young people here in Los Angeles. And when they came knocking on the Kachikis' door, Lily heard them loud and clear and felt that she could contribute to this huge effort of ending youth homelessness in our city. So with the help of her mom, Michelle Marks, who equally deserves this honor, Lily began a fundraising effort that started when Lily painted a picture of her mom's friend's pet. And from there, Lily began to gather pictures of pets from her mother's coworkers and began to paint them. And Lily, could we show one of these paintings right here? Oh, this is for me. Wow. Well, you can see, she's going to present this in a second, but you can see this amazing and beautiful art that she's made here. We'll have her talk about it in just 1 second. Maybe we can get the handheld microphone since the podium's a little high, if somebody could help us with that. She began to paint pictures of of her mother's coworkers' pets, and when she was all done, she would sell the paintings to her mother's coworkers, and they became a huge hit. So not only are we honoring somebody here for her heart, but also for the birth of a great artist in our city. And in a matter of weeks, Lily had collected over $200 that she had raised dollar for dollar. Through her mother's guidance and education on what it means to give, Lily very humbly handed the funds to the LA Youth Network. And there's something else that I really want to highlight, thank you, from Lily's effort and example. This has been an effort that has touched and motivated a countless number of people. So what she has done is inspired others to continue to help and address the issue of youth homelessness and to believe that one person can make a difference. I happened to find out about Lily's work with the Los Angeles Youth Network through Charlie Armstrong, our friend who's the president of Paramount Studios, and who was equally moved and motivated by this and shared Lily's story with my office. And from there, the story has circulated throughout the community and has had a heartfelt impact, especially on the LA Youth Network. And to me, the biggest impact of this is that this story tells people that anyone, no matter how big, how small, how old, how young you are, that you have the capacity to go out there and do something to improve conditions that our less fortunate neighbors face. This is a story of compassion that a little girl felt towards her neighbors and youth who have been disempowered. And through your actions, Lily, you're telling everybody, all of us, but more importantly the youth out there, that there are loving people in the city that are ready and able to help give back and get these young people on their feet. So I'm very humbled by your work, Lily and Michelle, and I want to present our sincere appreciation for your creativity, your insight, and your compassion. And we wanted to present to Lily Kachikis, a 6-year-old from Los Angeles, this great certificate of congratulations for the amazing work you've done. It's a little bit of our art to thank you for your art. Congratulations. Tell us why you decided to do what you did.
Because I thought it was fun.
That's a good reason. And you wanted to help people who are on the street? That's great.
Yes.
And if people are interested in getting their pets painted, are you available?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Lily. Let's give Lily a round of applause. And Michelle, would you like to say anything? Why don't you come forward? Say a little something, too.
See where Lily gets her shyness from. But, I just wanted to tell you about the painting that she did. Since we don't think that you have a pet, she did a painting of Silver Lake.
Oh, that's great. That's
You know
wonderful.
that
Oh, wow.
this is the dog park, Silver
Absolutely.
Lake,
Yep.
and then the recent fires, which
Wow.
are over.
That's amazing. Well, thank you. Yeah, we did have a cat until recently, so we don't have anything to paint right now. But thank you. And this is a picture of the recent fires, also, as well as the beautiful Silver Lake Meadow and Reservoir. And is this little turtle right here? It's the Silver Lake Monster. So we're going to be looking out there. You might have Reggie, but we're going to have the Silver Lake Monster. Thank you so much, Lily. Thank you, Michelle. Congratulations, and thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Garcetti. I'd like to now acknowledge Mr. Parks. We will go to item number, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Wesson, I apologize. Mr. Wesson, Mr. Garcetti?
Mr. Garcetti, Lily, I have a photograph of my 4 dogs that are up in my office. Do you think you could paint me a portrait of my 4 puppies if I allowed you to maybe take that photograph home and work on it? You think you could? How much, what's the most amount of money that you've received for one of your works of art?
Now that we're in this illustrious building, whatever you would be willing
No,
to
I want to be the highest. What was the most she sold a
The most was $30.
Okay, $50.
All right.
$50. So I'm in Mom, room 430. In my private office are my 4 little dogs, Jack, Homer, Peabody, and Tiffany, in a beautiful thing. And if Lily could paint that for me, I'd be honored to hang that somewhere, maybe in my other office. So if you could go upstairs, take a gander at that. And thank you so much, Lily.
Pet your dogs also, because she's a big fan of.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson. I appreciate that challenge. Mr. Parks, before we get to item 21, we're going to reconsider, Madam Clerk, those items that were ordinances. We do have 12 members present.
Okay.
Madam Clerk?
Okay, we're going to read through 8 the ordinances and items 14 through 18.
Okay. We will
first, just to reconsider.
We'll vote to reconsider. Madam Clerk, open the roll on reconsideration. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Okay. Those items are now before us again. Madam Clerk, open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you very much. Those items have been approved. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask Detective Youngman from South Bureau, LAPD South Bureau Homicide to come up. Also, Officer Gloria Covington, who is the aunt of our victim, and will be bringing the family members up. And basically today we're asking for a $50,000 reward for a homicide that occurred Wednesday, November the 8th, 2006, involving a 19-year-old by the name of Jose Ramiro Garcia. And let me ask Detective Munn to give us an overview of what the circumstances were on that case, and then also ask Officer Covington, in behalf of the family, to make a personal plea for information on this case.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilman Parks and members of City Council, for hearing our request. On Wednesday, November 8th, 2006, Jose Ramiro Garcia, male Hispanic, 19 years old, was parked in his vehicle in front of 2929 South Palm Grove Avenue in the city of LA. At the time he was sitting in his vehicle, 2 suspects approached him. One of them pulled out a handgun and shot him multiple times. Victim Jose was injured, however, he was able to flee in his vehicle a short distance until he collided with another vehicle. Suspects ran from the location. By the time the LAFD fire paramedics arrived, they transported him to UCLA Medical Center, where he was succumbed to his injuries and pronounced dead. At this time, my partner John Richardson and I have been working on this case from day one. We've interviewed numerous witnesses and countless motives for this homicide. However, we've come to an end where we cannot go on any further. With the help of the victim's family, his mom, Nancy, and his father, Ramiro, his cousin, Patricia, and of course his aunt, Gloria Covington, who's also a police officer, We were able to identify many people who were able to help us, but we came to an end. And we are here before you to plead and to request for this motion to pass through City Council for a reward of $50,000. And I believe the reward will help maybe some witnesses to come forward who were there, who were present, and who may have been able to see the suspects who committed this horrendous crime. Thank you.
And Officer Covington, maybe we could bring that photo up a little closer so that the TV cameras can also see it.
As you can see, this has been extremely hard for our family. Nobody ever expects to lose someone that's so very near and dear to them. It's made it even harder for us to accept the circumstances, especially now that it's come to an end. Nobody ever deserves to die this way. We've come as we have a special plea for the public. Someone out there saw something, and if this helps, maybe they can come forward. We haven't found closure at all. We're still suffering day to day. We don't know anything. Nothing's ever the same without him in our families. The only place we have him is in our hearts and the memories that we do cherish day to day. It's been especially hard for me as I do have to continue with our daily lives, seeing my sister and everyone grieve. It hasn't been the same. I know they say that only time heals the pain, but for us it's the other way around. The more time that we wait, we haven't found any closure. So a special plea to you, to the public, whoever sees this recording, if they know anything, if they could just please come forward on behalf of the family and myself. We beg that of you. We need to find something. Nothing will ever replace Jose. Thank you very much. At this time, his mother my sister would like to say a few words in Spanish, if you may allow that, please.
Yes.
Yes, and we'll give you a microphone so you'll be able to translate for us.
We have. Hold on 1 minute. We're going to get the translator. Just a second.
Yeah. No.
Les quiero agradecer por esta oportunidad.
I want to appreciate this opportunity.
Quisiera pedirle a toda la comunidad.
I want to ask the community.
Que por favor, si saben alguna información.
Please, if you know some information.
Hagan saber a la policía.
Let the police know.
Nosotros sabemos que si hay alguien que miró.
We know that there was someone who saw, who witnessed.
Quiero que por favor no tengan miedo, que hablen a la policía.
I want you to please not to be afraid to talk to the police.
Por favor, toda la comunidad que sepa algo, que haya mirado algo, es lo único que les pido.
Please, to the entire community, if you saw someone, that's the only thing I beg from you.
Por favor, ayúdenme a encontrar a alguien.
Please help me to find someone.
Queremos que mi esposo y toda la familia,
my husband and my entire family,
encontrar a esas personas que nos han hecho tanto daño.
We want to find the suspects who caused us so much damage.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the family being here and the detectives. And I'd just like to for the public, in fact, let me ask the detective, could you give a report back number to the public, how they can reach you?
Yes. You can notify either my partner or I at 213-485-1383.
Okay. And just for the public again, on Wednesday, November the 8th at 2006 at approximately 5 p.m., Jose Ramiro Garcia was fatally shot in front of 2929 Palm Grove Avenue in South Los Angeles. He was sitting in his vehicle when unknown suspects walked up to him and fired into the car. He died as a result of those injuries. We'd like to make sure that, again, the phone number is 213-485-1383 to notify 77 detectives. Thank you very much, and thank you to the family.
Thank you.
And I ask for an aye vote on the reward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. If we could, Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item. I think it's item number 20.
Next item is item number 20, and it was called special for cards.
Thank you very much. Mr. Zumadog, item number 20.
Yeah, item number 20. Yes, this is the special event fee waivers. And the problem, first of all, I'd like to really congratulate City Council. I'm very happy. For the past year, myself and Matt Dowd as well have been talking about the special event fee waiver abuse that's been happening, where a lot of commercial entities are getting these waivers. I'm seeing a lot now where the event sponsor will reimburse the city, especially like American Idol Live. What a frivolous waste of time, American Idol. So I'm glad to see that if we are doing something like that, the event sponsor shall reimburse. So City Council, give yourself a round of applause for finally doing something about the special event fees. But then it just gets shadier. You dig a little deeper, and here's what I want to warn City Council. I like to call City Controller Laura Chick. Hey, Laura Chick, what's up with the dough? I say we need to have an audit into all nonprofits that come up on these lists, all nonprofits on these special event fees. Every time the city gives money to a nonprofit, I think they first should be vetted with an audit through the city controller. Then they can get put on the list to take the money, because there's a lot of misuse, misappropriation, fraud, waste, and abuse of some of these nonprofit organizations that the city's dealing with. And I've seen some of them come on here, and I've been feeding them into my bat computer, and some of them come up shady, y'all, because you got people sitting on the committees that are making way too much money, taking big salaries, driving big fancy cars, and the money ain't going to where it's supposed to. So it's Friday, y'all. It's a nice day, and I don't even want to talk another 38 seconds, so I'll just say I want to see an audit of all of these nonprofits that are coming through the city that they're giving money to, these special event fee waivers, because there's a lot of shady fraud, waste, and abuse. I'm going through my I'm going through my computer, back computer, and I'm checking IRS numbers against things, and stuff ain't coming up right, y'all. Things like schools, for example, that get grant money, and then they own the building also, so they charge themselves rent for the building, but they own it, so they're taking money, double bamboozling it. It ain't coming up on the IRS forms. So don't give money to those kind of nonprofits. Y'all run an audit. Yeah, yeah. Hooty-hoo.
Thank you. That item is now before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
Next item. I know it was item number 23 we held.
Yes. Next item is item 23, and there's a substitute motion. It has been distributed.
Okay. Is there any questions or issues on item number 23? The amended motion is before us. Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
12 ayes.
That item's been approved. Next item.
Next item is item number 24 on the continuation agenda, and it was called special for cards from the public.
Thank you. We do have several cards on this. If I could ask the following individuals: Daniel Gus, followed by Phyllis Doherty. Then we will go back out to the San Fernando Valley. I think we'll be giving 2 minutes.
Good morning. The mandatory spay-neuter ordinance is absolutely important. We desperately need that in this city. Please support it. But we also need honesty from Ed Boakes. And Ed Boakes lied directly, sitting here, to Councilman Rosendahl when he told him that he would be exempt from the spay-neuter ordinance as it read. Mr. Boakes lied, and he didn't tell Councilmember Rosendahl about the breeder's fee and the intact fee of $100 for each and every dog that he bred. Mr. Rosendahl bred 3 generations of dogs, and even the puppies would be hit with those fees, and Mr. Boakes said that he would be exempt from those fees. Honesty is important as you pass this ordinance. The city needs to provide free, not discounted, spay-neuter services, and Mr. Boakes doesn't have the infrastructure to support this ordinance. In lying to Councilmember Rosendahl about his exemption, he's lying to you about the infrastructure to support it. Right now, ask Mr. Boakes to provide the exact dates and which doctors are going to be staffing these spay-neuter clinics. Ed Boakes has had time to write about his religious, sexual, and dating preferences on the website, but he's not had the time to open spay-neuter clinics to support this ordinance. This is a walking sexual harassment lawsuit. We've had them before, and we know that there are going to be more sexual harassment lawsuits. So why is Ed Boakes writing about his religious and sexual preferences when he should be opening these spay-neuter clinics to give your constituents, Councilmember Hans, constituents can't go to the Harbor Shelter and get free spay-neuter services. Neither can Councilmember Perry's or Reyes's. How are your people going to be able to get these services while Mr. Boakes is wasting his time? Mr. Boakes has lied not just to Councilmember Rosendahl, he's lying that March was a no-kill month and he killed 650 animals. Mr. Boakes failed to provide the infrastructure, and your constituents are not getting the services. May I please finish the sentence, please, Councilmember? I just want to finish the sentence.
Go ahead.
$3 million was given to Mr. Boakes, and he's been here 18 months. The spay-neuter clinics aren't open, so we desperately need this ordinance. So how are we going to honor the services to make it work? Please ask him. Thank you for the extra time.
Thank you. Phyllis Doherty is our next speaker.
Phyllis Doherty with the Animal Issues Movement. This is not just a spay-neuter ordinance. It is a quality of life issue for both the animals and the residents of Los Angeles, and especially those in the low-income areas where unaltered animals are most frequently the ones that create the hardships. These are the animals that get out of the yards, create traffic accidents, sanitation problems, and produce unwanted offspring that then themselves are out in the street and ultimately in our shelters. Most people would spay and neuter their pets if they realized that the dog packs that endanger them in the streets are mostly caused by unaltered male dogs fighting to mate with in-season females. And most attacks on adults and children in these areas are by unaltered dogs, often in pairs. Cats that breed under houses, and we all get calls for these, and I know your offices do, creating household and community issues regarding parasites are often those abandoned because they came into heat at 3 to 4 months of age. They contribute litters which become strays and are often ill or starving all over the neighborhood. The City of LA has appropriated $700,000 per year for spay and neuter, and Mr. Boakes has assured us that the spay and neuter clinics for each shelter will soon be open. Spaying and neutering is a one-time event. The animal only needs one trip to the vet to accomplish the procedure that can improve the health of the animal and certainly the safety of the community. I believe that anyone owning a pet must be prepared to assume responsibility for it. And I also believe that pet owners in Los Angeles will welcome the opportunities that this ordinance will provide for them to take that responsibility.
We'll next go to Van Nuys. Marlene Goodman is our next speaker. Good morning.
Good morning again. And Councilmember Garcetti, you said you have no cat. We can certainly assist you in getting as many as you have room for.
Absolutely. With my neighbors, don't worry. There's about 15 in our backyard, too, so we share.
Oh, we have to talk about TNR then, but not right now. I'm here to speak for those who have no voice. Companion animals must stop paying for their lives because of human neglect. The killing must stop, and I thank the City Council to be open to providing the laws that'll make that happen. It's also time for the breeders to step up and pay their fair share of business licenses, federal and state and local taxes. As breeders, they have been profiting for too long, while we taxpayers have been paying their fair share. This has got to change. They have to step up, they have to pay, and they have to stop hiding their income from all of us. I thank you for your time, and I know you're going to move forward in the right direction. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Marlene. Our next speaker here is Bill Dyer. After that will be Florence Bleeker.
I'm Bill Dyer with In Defense of Animals. We have begun a campaign called No Kill Now. You can see my button. No Kill Now, to accelerate the time it will take for us to reach the day when all shelters will become no kill. We wish to help the Department of Animal Services to reach this important goal before it's time. The spay and neutering of animals is an integral part of our campaign. When we last discussed this issue in the chambers, your words of concern and compassion were heartfelt and frankly amazing to me. We are very grateful to all of you for your support of this new ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Florence Bleeker is our next speaker, and then Carol Riskello.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
At the root of this issue is the same issue as the teen pregnancy issue that you discussed earlier. It is responsibility. The solution to both cases is education and incentives. The last time that this issue was discussed in these chambers, you were all told a series of half-truths by Ms. Mancuso, Mr. Boakes, and their colleagues. Facts were omitted and spun right and left. The handout that you have in hand includes the latest version of Assembly Bill 1634, which is being used as the model for Los Angeles. It is fatally flawed with myriad ambiguities and vagaries. The handout also includes a letter from COPS, the California Organization of Police and Sheriffs, joining their colleagues from other California and West Coast law enforcement agencies in strong opposition to this ordinance, or this proposal. Also, I have before me, for the record, a letter from the International Association of Assistance Dog Partners, also in opposition to the bill. Last, I would like to read briefly from the testimony of Congressman Charles Stenholm, who spoke on the 8th before the House Agriculture and Subcommittee on Livestock and Poultry, citing repeatedly, thank you, the falsehoods, scare tactics of the people behind this type of ordinance, and also the lack of effectiveness of this type of legislation. Time and time again, this type of law fails and is repealed. Again, I remind you of the lies that were told to you at the last hearing of this ordinance and urge you to read the facts in the booklet that I gave you the last time out and to really do your homework. Thank you.
We'll make sure when the Sergeant at Arms has that. When the Sergeant at Arms can assist us with getting the piece of paper there from the Speaker. We'll make sure we get that. If you just step aside, or thank you. Carol Riskello.
Shelter and euthanasia figures have been dropping for decades, as much as 80% in some areas. So this tells me that there is no problem to begin with. And what this ordinance will do is create a problem where none existed. Because as a dog trainer, I know that positive reinforcement is the only kind of training that works. It's the only way you learn. Negative reinforcement, which this law would be, it will halt a problem, but it won't change it. The positive things in this case are spay and neuter clinics and education, mostly education. That's what made the difference over the last few decades. And that's what will make the difference now. Passing a law isn't going to make any difference. The people who already ignore the law aren't going to step forward now just because you raise the fines or raise the, standards. I've been a dog owner for 40 years. I've never bred a litter, accidentally or otherwise, and I've never neutered or spayed any of my dogs because I don't believe in it for health reasons. And then I hit menopause and I really don't believe in it. Those hormones are there for a reason. I see it in my dogs. I've been a responsible, licensed, I've always paid my fees all along, and I'm being penalized for something that I'm not responsible for. That's the other side of the coin, but basically I want to say there is no problem, there's no need for the law. Thank you.
Can Mathieu is our next speaker from Assemblymember Lloyd Levine's office, and then Hayes Lynn will be next after that. Good morning.
Good morning. Council members, my name is Khan Matu. I am a field representative from Assemblymember Lloyd Levine's office. The Assemblymember would like to offer his full support for this motion, and we are very excited to be working with Councilmember Alarcon Cardenas on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Hayes Lynn. And then John Cheney will be after that.
Hi, I'm with Boxer Rescue Los Angeles. I first want to thank you for supporting AB 1634 on a state level, and we hope for your continued support with our city. We do educational programs. That is what we do, and it is not enough. I'm with a purebred rescue with over 150 purebred dogs. As a nonprofit, we have to be regulated with the IRS, with the Secretary of State's office. We are asking the same of breeders. Thank you very much, and we really hope for your continued support.
John Cheney. Then Ed Buck will be after
Good afternoon.
that. Good afternoon.
I grew up in Sylmar, California, and I remember as a kid, every so often my dog, our family dog, got pregnant, and our parents sent us to the grocery store to either give away or sell those puppies to people going inside the grocery store. And about 6 months ago, I saw kids doing the same thing, and it amazes me that 40 years has gone by, and people still have the same frame of mind with regard to dogs and cats and life itself. I can't believe that humans haven't evolved enough to value life in any form. I'd like to address one lady that spoke a few minutes ago and said something about, she misspoke. She said she had a license. There's no license to breed dogs. Anybody can go in the garage and breed as many dogs as they like without any regulation, any concerns of safety or health. They have voluntary situations in regards to AKC, but there's no oversight. There's nobody looking over their shoulder and saying, you're putting too many dogs in the field. I'd also like to say that if you look in the newspaper every week, the classifieds are full of dogs going anywhere from $300 to $3,000. AKC registered dogs. And I would like to know if these people are paying taxes on all these dogs that are sold, all these cats that are sold. I don't see that there's any oversight to make sure that their funds are being paid to take care of these animals and the leftovers that are being put in the shelters. The shelters are full of dogs and cats that are killed. 400,000 dogs and cats were put into the shelters last year alone. And the state of California spent $250 million housing and euthanizing dogs and cats and building animal shelters, when the simplest solution would be to mandate spay and neuter programs. I'd like to think of this law as a marker in the future where we'd all like to be.
Thank you very much. Ed Buck is our next speaker.
Good morning, Council, and thank you for considering this important legislation. Responsible breeders support this legislation because responsible breeders realize they are unique. Not all breeders are responsible. Not only is your action the correct, humane course, but it is resulting in millions of taxpayer dollars being saved. It is responsible taxpayer-wise, it is responsible humane-wise. But there is an important public safety issue here. According to the CDC, 75% of all dogs that bite are unneutered males. They're more likely to be roaming. They're more likely to be feral, if you will, in poor neighborhoods. And the bad news, small children are the most likely bite victims. May 20th begins National Dog Bite Prevention Week, sponsored by the American Veterinary Medical Association and the United States Postal Service. It's sponsored by the Postal Service because letter carriers are the second most likely victim of those dog bites. What is interesting about California is that while we have the distinction of the most dog bites, we also have the distinction of having the area in the nation for the letter carriers that has the highest incidence of dog bites right here in Van Nuys, California. While the national population suggests we should have proportionally 10% of all dog bites, we have 15%. It's not the kind of leadership that we want. I congratulate you on your efforts, and please move forward. Again, not only will it save money, it will save a lot of people the bites. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Our last speaker is out in Van Nuys, Ellen Little. Sorry, is it Little?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I can't believe that I heard someone say that there's no problem. I mean, talk about living in a bubble. Well, I'd like to say about this ordinance that it has all the promise of being a groundbreaking, humane legislation. And over the years, it would also save the city taxpayers untold millions of dollars. More importantly, we must stop the unnecessary suffering inflicted on hundreds of thousands of unwanted pets who languish daily in our shelters, only then to be euthanized. What a tragic waste. How can anyone want to see this continue? I'd like to add that the passing of such a city ordinance would only enhance the value of a breed dog, a dog that comes from a reputable licensed breeder. Whatever the additional cost of that license to the breeder could then be passed on to the responsible pet owner, who will then hopefully never abandon such a precious pet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. That finishes our public hearing on this. Any of the members wish to be heard on this item? Any of the members wishing to be heard second time, makers of the motion? I know this was waived out of committee. If not, let's go ahead. We'll open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you. And if there's no objection, we'll send that forthwith. All right, next item, please. And Mr. City Attorney, we have a special one on the findings, please.
Yes, Mr. President. I'll recite the facts as presented to me by the maker of the motion for the Council's consideration of the adequacy of the findings. Since the posting of today's agenda, it has become apparent to City staff that the contractor at the Children's Museum will cease working on the project on Tuesday if the City does not provide a commitment to transfer funding for the project. Immediate action is required to begin the transfer process on or before Monday. Council must first make findings pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2 before considering the substantive motion.
Anybody on the findings? If not, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Pursuant to Rule 23 of the Council Rules, that item is now before us. Does anybody wish to be heard on this item? Sorry? On the item. Mr. Smith.
Yes, I have some questions. This is an extraordinary request at the last minute like this, and particularly with the condition of the city's general fund, particularly our reserve fund, being very, very strapped. And it's unfortunate that we're forced to make a decision like this at the last minute to back up the Children's Museum and keep it open, or keep it going toward opening. My question is, and to either Mr. Alarcon or to the CALA, CLO, anybody, what backs up this loan? When we give a loan to a general department, we have the ability to take it out of their funds if they don't pay back the loan, or we find another way to do it. This is a quasi-city agency. We don't control the funding, the operations of it. So what backs up this loan?
The motion would authorize the city clerk to negotiate a contract. What backs up the loan is, as in essence, would be ultimately the assets of the Children's Museum. If they don't repay the loan, then the city would have to initiate legal action to get them to repay it.
But if it's not operational and open, it's just a hulk of a building that's not open yet. So we're putting money into a project which is really important. We've already sunk in, $18 million, I think, into this project. Now we're being forced at the last minute to float a loan to keep it going. If it doesn't open, then all we have is land value and a partially built building. So again, this is a very risky loan, I would think.
Well, yeah, the assets would certainly back it as well. And I mean, in terms of the status of the building, it is in fact almost complete. It is 80% complete, and I think the funding that Mr. Alarcon is proposing here as the loan would make sure that the contractors don't walk off the site and stop the work. So it would appear as though there isn't much chance that we wouldn't at least have a completed facility. Obviously, I can't assert to you today that it will be operational, but at least in terms of having a completed asset and a completed facility, there would appear to be very little risk that that won't be the case.
Okay. Well, I hope, are you going to be reporting back as to then what the negotiations are and how this is structured? Because I'm very concerned that Mr. Alarcon, you've just come here, but we've gone through a number of excruciating months dealing with our reserve fund, and we've depleted it tremendously. Our reserve fund is far below what we want it to be at this very moment in time, and taking more out of the reserve fund really puts us in a very damaging situation, quite frankly. So I'd like to know what we're going to come back with as far as terms. I'd like to know what the plan is to see that we're made whole on this as quickly as possible, because we're a very slim margin right now in our reserve fund.
We will, the motion also directs my office and the CEO to report back in 14 days on the status, and we'll be working with them on their fundraising. Mr. Alarcon had a motion last week that directed or asked Ms. Chick to conduct an audit, and we'll be working with her on the scope of that. We are, quite frankly, in a situation where they've received substantial public money. They've received Prop K money, Prop 40 money, Prop 12 money. There is some liability or obligation to repay that money if the facility doesn't open. So we're clearly between a rock and a hard place, but this is a stopgap measure and a loan to make sure that the contractors don't walk off the site and construction can continue.
Pursuant to our council rules, Mr. Weiss, the chair of the committee, will be our next speaker. Then the makers of the motion will be after that. Nobody had pressed the button previous to Mr. Smith, just procedurally to let people know. Mr. Weiss.
Wait, you said I chair this committee?
That waved it out. Oh, I'm sorry. I was confused with two things. It's Mr. Parks that I meant, and then we'll come back. I'm sorry.
Parks,
excuse me, Mr. Weiss.
This all the time.
I get you guys mixed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Mr. Parks.
Look at that hole.
Mr. Parks.
Okay. So I like being Mr. Parks instead of Mr. Weiss. I'm glad you clarified that. We had a conversation earlier, and I think you basically reduced my level of concern because you said the way this is set up, we are basically going on a dollar-for-dollar match. This will be a contract with the city clerk and the contractor, and that there is a repayment to the city within a year.
Correct. Mr. Alarcon's motion specifically provides that for every dollar that they have in hand from private contributions, the city would match that dollar up to $1.75 million. The city clerk in the contract will specify the terms of the repayment, but yes, any money they receive from the city would have to be repaid to the city within 12 months.
Okay. And so it was show on our books as a loan until July 08 or something like that?
Correct. And as long as that money is repaid before June 30th of 08, there would be no impact on the reserve fund.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, members. Thank you very much for considering this motion. I agree. This is an interesting way to approach a very troublesome problem with the Children's Museum, but it is also a phenomenal program that must be protected. We have invested so much, as Mr. Smith has pointed out, that 80% into construction is not the time to pull the plug on the project. The opportunity to provide a Children's Museum to the City of Los Angeles is obviously a great one, but taking helm of the 7th Council District, I recognize also that we must protect the dollar. So the nut of this motion is to take what was proposed to be a grant of $980,000 and turn it into a loan of $1.7 million at the end of the day. So this, and furthermore, and most importantly to my satisfaction, stimulate the private investment into the Children's Museum, because the private investment, the Children's Museum will not be a success, will not generate the $5 million in projected operational expenses a year based on its current fundraising of less than $1.5 million in private sector funding to date. And so this is a motion that, frankly, the mayor has encouraged and worked with us on to help in an urgent situation with regard to keeping the construction going past Monday, but also recognizes that we need to challenge the private sector to step forward for our children. And in this case, the Children's Museum is that opportunity. I believe that the Children's Museum is up to the task of raising that money, but if we were to offer this as a grant, maybe some of the contributors might think twice. So we're offering this as a challenge loan. And by doing so, I think that we will protect the completion of the Children's Museum project. We will protect the city's reserves in view of the fact that this is a loan. And we will we will be in a position to not worry so much about the funding or the ability to pay the contractor for construction, and get to focus on finishing the project, which is what all of us want to do. So, again, I want to thank you for considering this motion. I share, Mr. Smith, your concern about the viability and the practicality of this. The CLA will report back to us on the specifics of the loan structure. But I am absolutely confident that we are up to this task as a unified project between the Children's Museum, the private sector, the City of Los Angeles, the county, the state, all who have invested heavily into this project. Finally, let me just say that it is very important to me that we increase the private sector participation. As I stated, currently the project has raised $38 million with $27.5 million coming out of the public sector. That formula is not a formula for success in my mind, and so I would like to see the private sector funding, and this actually stimulates that, so that at the end of the day, the monies that are raised as a result of this motion will be 100% from the private sector after the Children's Museum pays back the City of Los Angeles. So with that, I urge your aye vote. Let's do this one for the kids. Let's make sure that we are not worried. Oh, I'm sorry. I neglected to talk about the audit. Controller Chick has agreed with us that it is appropriate for us to conduct an audit. That audit, I believe, will be a helpful way to understand exactly the fiscal status of the organization. But we are, again, our partners, and we take responsibility for that fiscal status as much as we hold the Children's Museum responsible for that fiscal status. And so with the help of the Controller's Office, we will also produce a document that will ensure the further viability of this project. So again, I urge your aye vote, and thank you for your special consideration.
Mr. Weiss is our next speaker. And after Mr. Weiss will be Mr. Huizar and Ms. Gruhl.
I want to ask Ms. Sisson some questions because I actually I know a good deal about this museum, and I think it's a wonderful thing if and when it happens. But I certainly, Mr. Miller or Ms. Sisson, I don't think I've seen something like this in the 5.5 years that I've been here. This type of loan to a private entity, albeit a nonprofit, at a moment of financial distress for that entity. I'll hold my time while you think if there's any precedent for this.
Mr. Weiss, offhand, I don't recall any. Certainly, there have been many projects that are done by nonprofits that have gotten CDBG funding or some other funding sources, or additional Prop K allocations. But I don't recall a loan from the reserve fund like this in the past.
Okay. Tell me exactly how the loan will work. How will it go out? Describe the matching mechanism, Ms. Sisson, and how will repayment occur?
Basically, what's being done here is the $1.75 million moves to the reserve fund and then to the GCP. The construction contractor has indicated that seeing that money there is enough for them to continue. It'll give the museum 30 days to raise that money, dollar for dollar match. They get the $1.75 million. They will have not only their funds, but they will have available the city's funds of $1.75.
So let's say hypothetically that in the next 30 days, the museum, I don't know if it's, first of all, it's not necessarily raises, it's pledges, receives pledges of $1.5 million from the private sector. What would the city then do?
The city would see those pledges and take those pledges on good faith and would be willing to release its funds to pay for construction invoices.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Miller?
No, I think the way the motion is instructed, there's sort of a two-step process. In order to keep this loan valid, the museum is going to have to show that it has pledges for $1.75 million within the next 30 days. And then as they receive the cash, they will come to the city and show that they've received the cash, and the city would release a like amount of cash.
Okay, so, all right, so wait, the first question I have is, what is sufficient for the release of city cash? Is it showing a cash receipt by the museum or the receipt of a pledge?
A cash receipt.
Cash receipt.
Is it a cash receipt? Because the motion says pledge. Show me in the motion where it says cash receipt. I apologize if I've misread it.
I think that there are
No,
two...
but just show me in the motion where it says cash receipt. Do it on the mic. Greg, you got to do that, Greg. Did you see what I'm asking, Tom?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it says pledge.
Okay, is your recommendation that it be cash receipt? Because that's certainly what you just said.
Yes, the intent is...
I'm sorry.
The city will provide a dollar-for-dollar match as a loan for each private donation received.
Correct, as opposed to a pledge. For each donation that's received, i.e. cash in the door.
Sorry, say that again?
If you look at the third paragraph from the bottom, it basically says funding be conditioned upon the museum receiving pledges. However, the city will provide a dollar-for-dollar match for each private donation received. So the pledges have to be there, but the city does not release its funds until the actual donation is received by the museum.
So just so I understand, Mr. Alcon, the city loan will not be released until there's actual cash from new private donations in the Children's Museum.
Yes, it's only regarding, there's two separate issues. The pledge is the 30-day period. The receipt of the cash is dependent on when that pledge is received in form of a cash, which they show to the city, and then the city will loan the money.
Bottom line, though, no city funds are released unless new cash is actually received by the museum.
Yeah, and it has to be tied to a pledge that is received within the next 30 days.
Yeah, so that makes it a new pledge. That makes it new money.
Absolutely.
Then when the new money hits their bank, then and only then could the city release funds in connection with this loan.
Right.
Okay. How will repayment occur?
Even the mechanism for repayment, the contract would require, and we'll work with the city clerk and come back to you in 14 days on exactly how it would work. I would anticipate that there would be monthly payments from the museum to the city for any money that's received. So they have 12 months to repay any loan. So if they have if they receive cash of $100,000 next month and the city releases $100,000 to them, then they will have to repay that $100,000 in June of 2008. So it would be an ongoing repayment, and I would anticipate probably monthly.
And so is your anticipation that the entirety of the city loan would be repaid within 12 months, full stop, or will it be rolling 12 months from the city's disbursement to 12 months? In other words, if the city makes part of the loan, Mr. Alarcon, let's say the city loans them $250,000 December 07, when is that money due? 12 months from December 07 or 12 months from the beginning of this process now?
I think what we had anticipated is it would be 12 months from whenever the cash was received. Certainly the council can stipulate that it be received no later than June of 08.
See what I'm asking?
Whatever you will vote aye for.
No, I'm asking these questions, Mr. Alarcon, because I think we just, in terms of doing oversight, on a Rule 23 that releases seven figures of
if
city
that's-
money. I just want to get all of the conditions out. So don't read you don't know me that well. Don't read anything into my questions. I just want to know the answers.
No, either way is fine with me, but whatever the council would desire would be fine with regard to that. So if it all needs to be paid by June 30th, whether they receive it June 29th or not, that's fine with me. But if we give them a year from the point they receive the funds, that's fine with me as well.
I'll ask you all for a recommendation on that.
It would be preferable to have it be repaid by June 30th, 08, so that we have the reserve fund whole.
There you go.
Okay. And then the final question I have for you is, and we all wish this entity success, if the entity cannot make repayment, are there any other city funds, discretionary or otherwise, that could be used to backstop payment to the reserve fund?
In terms of this project, there are a number of funding sources, both voter-approved, Prop K state, and the only thing that would be available is funds that are at the discretion of the council district.
As a backstop to repaying the reserve fund?
I have to take the advice of the CAO. I mean, and she actually is more familiar with the details of the funding streams for this project than I am, and if she says so, I believe it.
Well, let's start with that. I think you are to be commended, Mr. Alarcon. In the last couple of days, you have just jumped on this Children's Museum issue. It is clear that you want to see it succeed. You do not want to see it fail. And I recognize there's an imminent threat to the museum right now, and my hat is off to you for acting very quickly, not just on behalf of the people of your district or the Valley, but on behalf of the kids of LA. That's what you're up to, and I want you to know I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Huizar is next.
Thank you very much. Have we done this? Was a question answered if we've done this in the past? Please hold my time.
I don't recall anything structured quite like this in the past, at least not a loan to a nonprofit from the city's reserve fund.
Okay. And I want to be very clear on what the urgency is. What's the urgency?
We have been told that that the contractors who are currently working are going to walk off the job on Monday unless they see the evidence that there's money in the pipeline to pay them.
They're going to walk off on Monday?
Yes.
If there's no money to pay them?
Yes.
And this museum, and pardon my basic questions, I'm just now getting familiar with them, and that's with the situation there. And what's the legal status of the museum? Is it a public? I heard it's a quasi. What is it? Is it a public nonprofit?
It's a nonprofit, yes.
It's not a city agency?
It is not a city agency,
It is
no.
not a city agency. Okay. And have we loaned organizations such as this, made loans in the past to finish construction?
Again, not that I can recall from the reserve fund. There have been Section 108 loans backed by the Big If Fund. There's money sometimes that is loaned or granted from CDBG that goes to nonprofits for various projects. Again, I don't recall this specific structure, but the city has assisted nonprofits in building facilities before through loans from various sources.
And what are the risks to us in giving this loan out to the
I
city?
think the risk is that they won't be able to repay the loan.
And how likely is that? I mean, if I give a loan to my neighbor down the street, I tell myself, is he trustworthy? Has he done a good job? Has he repaid me in the past? I mean, what are the risks that you see, that any of us see about making this loan?
Well, again, I can't. I'm certainly not going to assert that there's no risk. I think that this is, $1.7 million in, a $40 million project. The building is largely completed. It is 80% complete and is expected to get a temporary certificate of occupancy in August. So this project is certainly real. Now, obviously, the risk is once the building is complete, will the museum be operating, and how much more fundraising can it do to repay the city's loan? I can't. I'm just not in a position of asserting what risk is there, but at the least, there is going to be a completed facility that the city could look to the value of that asset if they don't repay the loan.
And the fact that there's an ongoing, that Laura Chick, our controller, will begin an audit, the fact that there's a possibility of past fiscal mismanagement, it sounds like I don't know if it's mismanagement, but something happened where the construction wasn't able to be completed. Would that raise any concerns to you?
I do not have the sense that there's any fiscal mismanagement per se. I've not heard accusations of that. I think the concern is that there has been various scenarios reported by the museum in terms of what their current status is in terms of having enough money for construction. I think Mr. Alicon's motion, I think, is to have the controller go in and independently look at exactly where they are, exactly how much money they have, and where they are. But there's no... I certainly have not heard any sense that there's fiscal mismanagement or waste of money involved. We just need a clear picture of exactly where they are.
I see. Okay. And I'll be honest, I'm a bit uncomfortable going through this process, although I'm going to support this, but I think that, I have a number of projects in my district. I'm playing by the rules. I say we need an armory in my district that people have been waiting to have as a youth center. We try to find funding to even do planning, a couple of $100,000. I'm told to wait. It's tight fiscal times, etc. I know this is a loan, but it's a risky one at that. And I'm just uncomfortable that when we are going to provide or bear the burden, the risk on our side of making this loan, when there is some question as to whether they will be able to raise the private funds, just given the history of being shortchanged. And but I do think it's a worthy cause. At the same time, I just want to be very clear when we do this as to we're putting everything down on the table. I'm expressing myself up front about how I feel about it in the event something doesn't go correct. But I do like the fact that there are some reporting mechanisms in here. 30 days, they'll be back to report on the private fundraising. When it says they will report back to the council on the status of private contributions, in what format will they report back to the council, and what does that mean?
My expectation is that they will appear here before the council with written documentation of the pledges that they received and any cash that they've received to date.
Yeah, and so we will agendize this, have them come here, and not just be an item that gets through, but we will actually have them sit down and tell us where they are with their fundraising. What happens if the 30 days, within those 30 days, they don't raise the loan amount? We don't.
It's not available.
It's dollar per dollar.
The instruction here is that it is dollar for dollar, and if they don't have $1.75 million in private pledges in 30 days, the commitment for the loan is gone.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I think this has been a good discussion. None of us like to be in this position in the last minute to have to do this, but I think that there has been an investment in this particular children's museum, and that it is about 80% complete. I think the questions that Mr. Smith asked are very good ones as far as ensuring the security of those dollars. And I think what we are putting in your hands, Ms. CAO and Mr. CLA, is the responsibility in ensuring that the contract that you design and develop protects the city of Los Angeles. It's unfortunate that we are in this position, and we hope that this attention that is being given to the Children's Museum will actually encourage people to come in with the private sector dollars to be able to support something. The great cities of this country have children's museums that are thriving places, and I've been to a few of them recently, and it is I think something that is going to be a great place for us, and particularly in the San Fernando Valley. And I think the audits that are going forward will help us as well kind of understand where some of those proposition dollars have gone and the spent, and where some of the challenges have been, and particularly in looking again at the private sector and how we can push them to go to that next step. I think the one reason as well that I signed on to this was the fact that we will pay now or develop some, role in this now, or we will pay later a lot more. We've unfortunately, in the experiences over the years, I think Mr. Weiss was asking, have we ever done this? I think we've seen some problems where we may not have jumped in to try to resolve and be a piece of the puzzle to try to solve it, where we've paid a lot more later. If they walk off the job on Monday, it will cost us, or Tuesday, whatever the day is, but it will cost us a lot more to be able to restart that and the costs associated with that and the 80%. So I think we're all taking a deep breath. We're all taking a leap of faith that this will allow it to move forward, and that we will be able to ensure the security of our taxpayers' dollars, and that it really is used as a conduit to solve a problem for a children's museum that is desperately needed in the San Fernando Valley.
Thank you, Ms. Brule. Our next speaker is Mr. Alarcon.
I just want to thank all the members for their comments, and I agree with you that we need to stay on this project as a group. This is a citywide project. It will benefit kids from Granada Hills to San Pedro, and so I really appreciate that this is not just my responsibility to ensure the financial viability of this project, and I appreciate your concerns and would appreciate your guidance as we move forward. I do believe, though, that there is a possibility that this short-term, what essentially is a short-term gap loan to allow the contractor to have the confidence to move forward. But there is a possibility that we stimulate so much fundraising that they don't need this loan. And that's what I'm hoping for. And it may be an interesting opportunity, given what Mr. Smith said. Given what Mr. Smith said, it might be a good opportunity to learn from this model instead of granting dollars out of the reserve fund as we have done in the past. This loan model may be a better approach as we move forward. So with the success of this opportunity, then we may be a little freer to look at other opportunities that may have similar circumstances. In this case, I want to thank my colleagues in advance if you support this project, but more importantly, let's continue to build a project. On Tuesday, the Children's Museum can move forward. I do want to thank the mayor again for his office assistance in putting this measure together. Without the mayor's leadership on this item, I would not be presenting this to you right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon. Our next speaker for the second time is Mr. Huizar, followed by Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I was wondering, if this isn't repaid, we lose the money from the reserve fund, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any other line item in our budget or any other place where we could make up for this money? Because as I sat through budget hearings for 2 weeks, this budget committee has done everything possible to abide by our new fiscal policies that will not only keep us thinking about today, but for the future fiscal viability of the city, and we stay away from the reserve fund. We've been doing that. It's so tempting. But here we are, there's a possibility that we will lose some money from the reserve fund after a lot of great other programs and ideas we've asked to get some money from the reserve fund, and we've said no. So there is some risk of us losing this money from the reserve fund. And it's just a matter of fairness in my view, because here we are, we're saying, well, let's put this one on top of the line. Should we lose this money, as opposed to us restraining ourselves from using money from the reserve fund? Is there any other place in our budget where we could tap into to say, get this money for the loan?
At this point in time, you would need to take monies away from other programs and projects in order to fund this. And I think that is one of the reasons the reserve fund was looked at.
Okay. There is a trust fund, I think, that I read in the newspaper, $900,000 or so. Can we use that as a backup?
Those are funds that are available at the discretion of the council district.
Oh, that's at the discretion of the council district. Okay. And can we use those as a backup instead of the reserve?
In terms of are there restrictions on its use? No, you could use it as a backup, but again, those are funds that are spent at the direction of the council district.
And those are at the direction of the council district?
That's correct. But it is a lawful legal use for those funds to be used on this project.
Okay. Is it possible, Mr. Alarcon, to, instead of the reserve fund being the guarantor of this loan, that we use the trust fund as a guarantor of the trust fund, of the loan?
This whole matter emerged when the Cambrian Energy Fund, which was guaranteed for the communities of Pacoima and Lakeview Terrace as a result of the damage that they suffered for living with Lopez Canyon landfill for some 50 years. And when that community was up in arms that their money was being used without their approval. So I'm not going to make that commitment against the communities of Pacoima and Lakeview Terrace, given that they suffered so long with Lopez Canyon. I would remind you, this is the same community that put $1 million into the Lakeview Terrace Library, and this community has ponied up plenty. This is a citywide museum. The whole city is responsible for this, not just one community.
Okay. And I'm only asking these questions up front now because, I mean, this matter came to my attention at the last minute, and I just want to make sure that the questions have been asked, that we vet this out and accept that answer. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Huizar, great minds think the same way. I was going to ask those very same questions. My concern is, as you point out, this is a great model. I think what you've done is the challenge model is a great model, Mr. Alarcon, that we should use in the future. But as you said, this is a loan, and with any loan comes collateral. And I still don't see the collateral other than the good faith pledge to go out and raise the money, and the fact that the city is willing to put the money up to do something we're way out on a limb we've never been on before. And so I think the discussion Mr. Huizar just broached is a very appropriate one, and that was that money, while it was not allocated according to what you believe was the right way to do it, was a pledge made by the previous councilman of the district to complete the project. At the last minute, that money is not there now, and we are forced to make this decision today, one we are going to make because we have to. We have to fund this project. The question revolves then around the collateral. How do we guarantee that money? How do we as a city protect the best interest of the people's money in guaranteeing the money comes back? And that is the question I think Mr. Huizar started down the road, and I want to explore again, and that is, if we do not get the money and the pledges back, can we ask you to pledge that money, the difference, whatever it may be, as the collateral for that loan until you raise the money? And it's a fair question because I understand you've got that project. I have the same thing with Sunshine Canyon, and I have the same kind of trust fund, and it's at the discretion of the councilman of the district. The councilman of the district, prior to your arrival here, made the pledge, and the project progressed on that pledge, and now that that money is not there, we have to make a decision today to keep the project going. We're going to do that because we have no choice. We have to keep the project going. We're just asking you to give us a guarantee back, and it's not just your word, but a pledge of the money that was there, that if it doesn't come back in the way of pledges and outside income, that you will then come back and back us up.
The question is not an illogical question, but as a policy consideration, the question is truly, do we want local council districts to guarantee funding for citywide projects with their local funds? Where do we stop? When the Coliseum is in trouble, do we ask a council member if they want to take it out of their office budget to guarantee something that we may do in the future? I think that's a bad policy precedent. The fact of the matter is, Councilmember Padilla introduced this motion in June, and for 7 months did not carry it through. I don't see that as fulfilling the commitment if that in fact was the case. I don't believe that that was the case. What I do know is that when I took the helm, the community asked me not to do this. Now, I don't know what was going on before I took the helm, but I know that the community was absolutely opposed to using their locally designated funds again as a result of damages they incurred from the Lopez Canyon landfill. And so, no, I don't see that. I think it's a dangerous precedent to set, because I'll come back next year and ask you for the same kinds of commitment with your local funds, with the Community Benefits Fund, for example, with BFI. I don't want to do that. I don't think it's a good policy. And we have a citywide responsibility as well as a local responsibility.
Okay.
And so I would like to keep the two separate.
That was on my time, and I still have some time, so let me answer that, saying that I have done that in my district with my trust fund, where I lent money to Rec and Parks to buy parkland outside of the Granada Hills community, although I did it with the permission of the community.
With the community support.
But nonetheless, the point was that the previous council member made a legal pledge, which this council acquiesced to. This council acquiesced to because it requires a motion.
There was no legal pledge.
No, when you disperse funds from that trust fund, it requires a council motion. So you're saying there was no motion made, the councilman just made a pledge that they're counting on, and now you're withdrawing the pledge?
The motion simply asked to draft an ordinance.
Okay.
There was no legal pledge.
Okay, for this money. I'm talking about the pledge that was made by the council district before you.
Pardon me?
Okay, the pledge that was made was not done in the form of a council motion. It was only a pledge by Mr. Padilla to do that.
No. There was a motion.
There was a motion.
There was a motion.
Which this council agreed to. That's what I'm saying.
No, the council never voted on it.
Never voted on it.
We voted for to have them drafted.
No, no.
It got drafted and then...
Wait. I don't believe the council ever voted on the motion whatsoever.
I believe what occurred is that there was a motion that the council did approve that instructed city attorney to draft an ordinance and submit it back to the council for consideration. The council never actually acted on using that money for this project.
Nonetheless, the council obviously agreed with it because we sent it to the city attorney for drafting. So we made the first step in an agreement to do this as a council. We made that policy decision, Mr. Alarcon, we made that policy decision already as a council to go forward with it because we instructed the city attorney to draft it. Now, a technical fact that it wasn't finalized by the city attorney is another issue, but you're saying that this is not a policy decision we want to go down. We've already gone down that road. That's been established because we instruct the city attorney to draft that ordinance and finalize it and bring it back.
And in this case, the community is absolutely opposed to using that money for this purpose.
And I trust you on that. I certainly can't speak for your community. I don't want to. What I'm asking you to do is give us some guarantee that we will make this loan and that there will be a good faith effort to make sure it's repaid. And if it isn't, then what are you going to do about it? That's what I'm saying.
I would remind my colleagues that the mayor is working as a partner with this motion.
Okay.
And I think that's a pretty good chunk of collateral.
Okay.
Not to mention we have $38 million in collateral in the building itself. I don't think they're going to default on this loan. There's sufficient collateral and other leverage for the city to use to guarantee this loan should they use it. But I don't think putting the $980,000 in essence in abeyance while this project moves forward, I think is unfair to Lakeview Terrace and Pacoima. And I want to be able to use that money for them this year.
All right. Well, I would request, and I hope you'll agree, well, maybe you won't, that when the CLA reports back that you will bring us all these options, including that option, as a point of discussion, and also have input from the mayor on what his intentions are to help us get through this situation as just an amendment to, as your report back, that's included. And I'm sorry, I know your intentions here, but I think it has to be considered in light of the fact that that was a legitimate pledge that everybody thought was there. And I think it needs to be part of that discussion. So I would hope you would agree with that we at least leave that on the table as part of the report back, and that report back specify all the options for repayment. That's a motion.
Is that a friendly, okay, so consider a friendly amendment. Ms. Perry.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I've been in this situation so many times I can't even begin to tell you. And I just wanted to ask, I don't know if Mr. Alarcon can answer or if one of you can answer. So what's going on with the private fundraising, and were there goals that weren't met? And if so, what adjustments were made other than coming back to the public sector sooner rather than later. And, I read it in the paper too, and I was wondering at what point within the timeline of the private fundraising did the private fundraising efforts then realize that they weren't going to make goals, if there were any goals?
Actually, if I may answer that question, that's one of the purposes for the audit, is to find out what are standards for museum operations relative to fundraising strategies. I think there's a series of things that occurred in this particular case. First of all, the initial board was prominent with people who were not from the San Fernando Valley, yet so their focus was on fundraising outside of the San Fernando Valley. Councilman Padilla marshaled and really re-energized the commitment to the Children's Museum, but when he moved it to the Valley, it made it difficult for the board to raise money outside the San Fernando Valley. Secondly, the board was not, I think, in the best position to raise money from the San Fernando Valley. There's been a couple of transitions in the executive director position. Most recently, Cecilia Aguilera Glassman has taken the helm for the last month and a half or so, and I have absolute confidence that she will be able to raise this money and more. And she is already working on a strategy that's specific to targeting the San Fernando Valley for more private fundraising. But the other thing I would say is that typically, I think without looking at the controller's audit, historically, projects like this typically get their first money from the government sector to stimulate the project. And in this case, where it's essentially a recreation function for children, the City of Los Angeles stepped forward, as well as the county and the state, to stimulate that. The private giving is not up to par, quite frankly. We need to get it there. This motion, which is a loan from the city, will stimulate, I think, 1.5 to 1.7 million in private giving. It's a good model, and I think that we're trying to get to your answer. At the same time, we've got the city controller who is moving forward with an audit to get us a better answer.
I wasn't elected at the time, but I remember the move and the drama surrounding taking the Children's Museum from downtown over at the mall, and then people getting swept up in the tide to move it out to the San Fernando Valley. And there was a lot of emotion surrounding that, a lot of promises made to raise private money by people who have significant social standing and reputations and names in this city. And I don't know that it ever really took flight, but clearly that the fact that you're here today is kind of sad, and it's kind of shocking, especially in a town where we all talk about how much we want to help children, and then to have to turn back to the private sector, especially at the last minute, and dip into our public funds like this is very daunting, because, like you, I have so many projects where I would love to do the same thing and get them done. I can recount to you many battles we've had here on the council floor, as recently as Mr. Parks, what was the name of that project? The two church projects. I had the loan from the CRA, and they swore they were going to pay it back, and then we practically had to strangle them and beat them into the ground to get them to commit in writing that they were going to pay it back. So I just need to note that for you, so we remember this day. There's a lot of emotion tied up in this, and then if somebody doesn't make their fundraising goal, and then we have to come back in 3 months and say, well, we need to do a little more just to get us, because I understand how construction costs rise. Believe me, I do. I have more redevelopment projects going in my district than probably anybody else in the city, and I know that time is money, but it's kind of ridiculous that all these private sector people just haven't stepped up to the plate to help, and now you're in the ground, whole thing falls apart, construction costs rise, and here we are dipping into our reserve fund, which is this golden rule that we try to adhere to, and it makes me very uncomfortable.
That is the last person on the speaker queue. What we have before us, I believe, Madam Clerk, is the original motion with the friendly amendment by Mr. Smith. Okay. Madam Clerk? Yes, Ms. Jerry. Microphone.
For clarification, I believe Mr. Weiss indicated that any loans be repaid, not within 12 months of receipt, but any loans be repaid before June 30th of 2008.
That will also be an amendment to the motion. Okay.
And also, the other thing that was clarified during our colloquy was that in order for city funds to be dispersed, the requirement is that there be actual cash receipts by the museum, not just the receipts of pledges. And I admit that there was sort of ambiguous in the motion, but it's been clarified as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Madam Clerk, open the roll on this item, close the roll, tabulate the votes.
11 ayes.
That item's been approved. Next order?
Madam President, should this go forthwith?
Yes, forthwith. Next item?
Next items are motions for posting and referral.
They will be posted and referred.
There are now excuses on the desk. Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused on May 15th to leave at 11:30 a.m. for city business. A motion is required.
Mr. Parks moves. Mr. Rosendahl seconds.
Councilmember Perry requests to be excused on May 15th to arrive at 11:15 a.m. for city business. This meets council policy.
She will be excused.
Councilmember Perry also requests to be excused on May 16th to leave at 11:45 a.m. for city business. This meets council policy.
Should be excused.
Finally, Councilmember Perry requests to be excused on June 22nd to leave at 11:30 a.m. for city business. This meets council policy.
Ms. Perry will be excused.
And that clears the desk.
Thank you. Do we have announcements today, colleagues? Any announcements? There's no, yes, Mr. Wiesar.
Thank you very much, Madam President. For those of you in the Northeast Los Angeles area, I want to invite you to the Eagle Rock Boy Scout Troop 188 annual pancake breakfast. You could get a delicious breakfast starting at 6 a.m. for only $5. I was there last year. Lots of food, very well cooked by our young boys from the Eagle Rock area. It is at 2035 Colorado Boulevard. Please come out and support our young boys as they learn about civic involvement. Also, for those of you in Boa Heights, it's the annual baseball opening ceremony at the Boa Heights Sports Center, 933 South Mott. We will have a number of community members and a few special guests to help kick off the baseball season for those youngsters in the Boa Heights area. And finally, along with Council President Eric Garcetti and the City Attorney Rocky DeGladio, we are co-sponsoring a job fair in Glassell Park this Saturday, May 12th at 3750 North Verdugo from 12 a.m. to 4 p.m. The job fair will open to youth ages 16 to 24. This will be a great opportunity to meet potential employers and network. There will be informative workshops on interviewing techniques, resume writing, and much more. Admission is absolutely, positively free. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wiesar. Any other announcements? Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to announce that the LA Inner City Mass Choir, under the direction of Jeffrey Coppridge, is having their annual program on Saturday, May the 12th at 8 p.m. at Little Zion Baptist Church at 2408 South Wilmington in Compton. Also mentioned to a number of young people looking for summer interns. West Angeles Church Community Development Department is looking for 2 interns, assistant project director, and also a market analyst. And they ask for those who are interested to apply by June the 4th, and they can be reached at 323-751-3440. And then the 8th District is having its annual energy fair on Saturday, May the 26th, 9:30 to 11:30 at Jesse Brewer Park at the corner of Exposition in Vermont. And then also Joyce Perkins is having her annual, the 5th annual Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative Community Forum on Thursday, May 17th from 8 to 2:30 at Davison Center at UCLA. And then finally, the LA Urban Policy Roundtable under the direction of Earl Afari Hutchison is having a reception for the Venezuelan ambassador at Lucy Florence tonight from 6 to 7:30, and that's at in Leimert Park, 3351 West 43rd Street.
We do have some, yes, Ms. Perry. Okay. What I'd also like to announce tomorrow is Fire Service Day. There are several places across the city where you can go to your fire station, and you can look on, believe the website or call your local fire station and visit. It's a great day for you to meet the firefighters and the kids to see, particularly after this week and what we've seen, the real heroism of our firefighters, and to thank them personally. We do have adjourning motions. I'd ask that everyone please rise. I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Weeser.
Thank you, Madam President. It's with a real heavy heart that I ask that we adjourn in the memory of Ellen Torres, an 18-year-old who was tragically shot by gang members in Boyle Heights this last week. This morning I attended his funeral in Our Lady of Talpa in Boyle Heights. Ellen had previously been a gang member but had recently turned his life around, and in fact this week he was scheduled to start school at East Los Angeles Community College. He had become involved with a group called SEA, who is a prevention program in Boyle Heights. But after this last week, he was babysitting his 9-year-old sister, Michelle, when someone called his name to the back of the house. He came out and was repeatedly shot. Ladies and gentlemen, this reminds us of the work we have yet to do to stop the gang violence, provide prevention and intervention programs in our communities. One life lost is one too many. He was from a family who cared deeply about him, and someone who had seen that there is a more positive way to go about, and he was turning that corner when unfortunately this caught up with him.
Ms. Perry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This first motion is on behalf of Council President Eric Garcetti. In memory of Mary A. Figueroa, she is the mother of Sandra Figueroa of El Centro del Pueblo. She was a former student aide for the Los Angeles Unified School District and was ill for some time. She was 81 years old and is survived by her husband, 5 children, and many grandchildren.
I'd like to be added on to that one, if I could, please.
I would also like to adjourn in memory of George Dixon, who was a retired machinist who died earlier this week at the age of 92. He was a huge supporter of the Central Avenue Jazz Festival and gave graciously every year to keep the annual event going. He was also a strong supporter of the rebuilding of the Dunbar Hotel. As a huge jazz fan, he wanted to preserve the legacy of the hotel that served as a centerpiece and a center place for jazz music in Los Angeles for many, many decades. In his passing, he leaves behind 2 sons, one, Reginald, who is the executive director of Dunbar EDC, and Ronald Dixon, and 9 grandchildren. He will be missed, but never forgotten.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. Eleanor Bunch, fondly known as Mrs. Allen to her students, taught for many years at the Osage Elementary School in Westchester. She touched countless lives with her immense kindness and compassion, as well as her deep, legendary love of children and animals. She had a special room at the back of her house where she cared for numerous stray dogs over the years, and once she was late to school because she stopped by to buy some raw hamburger meat to feed a hungry stray dog. Born Eleanor Waldman on February 13, 1927, to Russian Jewish immigrants. When Eleanor was a young child, her family relocated to the Mid-Wilshire, Beverly Hills area of Los Angeles. She eloped in 1944 with, quote, a handsome second lieutenant. Her first marriage lasted 12 years, during which she received a Bachelor of Arts degree from UCLA with a major in kindergarten and primary education. It is said that she never had a bad word to say about anyone. And when others did, she would comment that he must be having a bad day. Eleanor volunteered for 30 years at the local Mormon church in Westchester, serving children, teens, and women. Eleanor Bunch passed away peacefully in her home at age 80 on April 24th. She's survived by 5 stepchildren of Paul Bunch and George Allen and numerous cousins around the state of California. You're invited to pay your respects at to Dear Eleanor at the Englewood Stake Center, the Mormon Church, in the Relief Society Room at 7515 South Sepulveda Boulevard at 10 a.m. this Saturday, May 12th. I have a second one, Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Rosendahl.
Catherine Zimmerman. Catherine Wolf Zimmerman, 83, passed away on Monday evening, May 7th, after a short illness. She died at her home in Mount Wolf, Pennsylvania, where she lived for most of her life. She was a 1941 graduate of William Penn High School and earned a bachelor's degree from Wesley College in 1945. She served the York community in many ways, most notably as president and trustee of the YWCA, as president of the Junior League and allocation chairperson for the United Way. She was honored by the YWCA as the woman who made a difference. Catherine is survived by her husband of 60 years, John Zimmerman, her brother Bill Wolf, and her 20 children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Catherine's grandchild, Liz and John Hodges, are college friends of my deputy, Phil Tate. May she rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Seeing no other adjourning motions, Madam Clerk, please call the roll. This meeting is now adjourned.